Chapter 1276. Zhu Yi took on the appearance of the Wenhua Taiji diagram and manifested his primordial spirit incarnation. The aura of his dermic powers became even more vast, grand, and profound. The Yi Dao talisman on the Taiji diagram kept flashing. Zhu Hongwu was no longer a secret in front of Zhu Yi. The Tao of cause and effect clarifies the principles of all things. The heavenly Tao carries the will of all Taos in the world. The two are combined and then integrated into the domineering concept of the Taiji scripture to determine the fate of all beings in the world. Zhu Yi quickly understood Zhu Hongwu's martial arts concept and his path to void return and Tao integration. Zhu Yi's voice came from the Wenhua Taiji diagram. The idea is not bad, but as I said, the heavenly Tao studies the heavens and the great Tao leads to the heavens. It has no intention of worshipping gods or Buddhas, and it has no intention of letting others control their fate. The Buddhist Dharma also aims to cultivate oneself, to understand one's Buddha nature, and to see Buddha. Everyone can become a Buddha. That's why the Buddha didn't leave his golden statue for later generations to worship. The Taiji orthodoxy is domineering, wanting to control everything. You want to use the Taiji orthodoxy to coordinate the Buddhist orthodoxy and the heavenly Tao orthodoxy so that it can be integrated with your own martial arts fist intent. The idea is good, but it's a pity that the Taiji scripture can't surpass the heavenly Tao and the Buddhist Dharma of the Tempest Temple. Zhu Yi said casually, "Your attempt is successful, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. Father said you want to teach me. It's a pity that you're not knowledgeable enough and don't understand the principles behind it. There's an ancient saying that there's no seniority in learning. Those who have reached first. Let me give you some pointers." As the Wenhua Taiji diagram spun, the images of the four spirits fused together, forming a huge ring that trapped Zhu Hongwu. A powerful suppressive force descended. It was much stronger than the heavenly unicorn technique just now. What shocked everyone even more was that around the ring, there were light figures floating. A golden Buddha sat in the north, a blurry figure that was half black and half white sat in the south, a dignified and domineering emperor sat in the east, and a Taoist dressed in Taoist robes, who seemed to be one with the heavens, sat in the west. The four silhouettes sank into the halo at the same time. As the halo expanded, it seemed to clarify the principles and laws of the operation of all things in the world. It was endlessly profound and possessed boundless power. This was the four symbols' great heavenly cycle formation formed by Zhu Yi's fusion of the power of the four spirits. The current four symbols' great heavenly cycle formation was much stronger than before. The halo trapped Zhu Hongwu in the middle, and then it kept shrinking, isolating the surrounding space and trapping Zhu Hongwu within. Zhu Hongwu raised his eyebrows. His violent punches did not stop, shaking the entire halo as if he was going to shatter it. However, at that moment, bright rays of light and black lines rushed out from the Wenhua Taiji painting formed by Zhu Yi's essence soul. They landed on the two ends of the halo and continued to weave. At this moment, Zhu Yi's four symbols' great heavenly cycle formation fused with his light and darkness mandala all heavens formation, forming an extremely powerful barrier that sealed Zhu Hongwu. Looking at the shocking scene in front of them, all the spectators were inexplicably shocked. Dao Lord Luofu frowned slightly. Great Zhou's Marquis Xuanji, Zhu Hongwu, has only just reached void returning and unification, but he is incredibly powerful. Not to mention human cultivators who are at the beginning of their tribulations, even some demons who have not experienced many tribulations would not be a match for him even if they revealed their true form. This EZ's magic power is really shocking. Without the Permitha bridge, he can seal Zhu Hongwu with his primordial divinity incarnation realm. Sword Venerable Vast Sea's expression was extremely solemn. It's rumored that his junior brother, Wang Lin, the High Venerable of the Supreme Tao, didn't have a creation treasure with him, but he killed the great sage Zhu Jian, a great demon in the initial tribulation stage. The rumors are indeed true. Shi Zongtang's eyes flickered. Zhu Hongwu doesn't seem to have used his full strength. The outcome is still unknown. While he was thinking, the altar that sealed Zhu Hongwu began to shake violently, as if it could break at any time. In the altar, Zhu Hongwu's eyes were cold. His fist, which could melt all gods and Buddhas and control all qi, violently bombarded the barrier altar. Cracks instantly appeared on the spirit formation altar. Zhu Hongwu coldly looked at Zhu Yi. A moment of carelessness, and I actually fell into your trap. But you unfilial son, do you really think that you can seal me with such insignificant methods? That's the biggest joke in the world. At this moment, the Wenhua Tai Chi diagram turned in the void and turned back into Zhu Yi's appearance. Zhu Yi flew in the air and came to the barrier altar. He sat down cross-legged on the top of the altar. Silently, the Yi Dao talisman was still spinning in his eyes. Zhu Yi said slowly, "You have a plan and reserved your strength. It seems that you want to slowly delay me. You are preparing something, right? Unfortunately, everything has been seen through by me. If you had used your full strength, I naturally wouldn't have been able to seal you. Unfortunately, you may not have the chance to use your full strength now. You may not have the chance to prepare the things you need to prepare." As Zhu Yi spoke, he used his finger as a pen and wrote in the void. Light and darkness mixed together, forming a beautiful text in the air. It was the text of the saints that he had studied in the past, the one that caused 100 saints to cry out. The text of the saints was written paragraph by Zhu Yi. Then, it landed on the altar that sealed Zhu Hongwu below, forming another layer of seal, one layer after another, not allowing Zhu Hongwu to escape. Zhu Hongwu shouted, "Unfilial son, how dare you!" As he punched, his eyes suddenly lit up. All the acupoints in his body were vibrating. This vibration formed a strange rhythm, ancient and mysterious. Along with this rhythm, light flashed in the air and actually formed words. These words were extremely strange. They were different from any words that existed in this world. Since the beginning of human history, there had never been such words. Even the various talismans used by the tens of thousands of demons were different from the words in front of Zhu Hongwu. But these words contained a unique aura. Zhu Yi immediately noticed the changes in the altar. He lowered his head to look at the words, the talisman of change in his eyes shining brightly. Father's book was indeed not for nothing. He actually created a brand new type of words. Your words, I have to say, are very bold. You want to create words for all the gods and Buddhas in the world, right? Zhu Yi's fingers did not stop. He was still writing his own text of the saints. Creating words is a great achievement, a great undertaking. It is enough to be passed down through the ages. Unfortunately, your foundation is not strong enough. You haven't even understood the knowledge that you have. Yet, you want to create words. In the end, it is just a castle in the air. Silently, Zhu Hongwu said, "Unfilial son, don't try to win with words. Once my world creation magnificent chapter breaks your seal, I will capture and kill you." The brand new strange words gathered together and formed a text. It rushed towards the sealed altar. The powerful energy contained within it seemed to be singing the praises of the supreme ruler of heaven and earth. He opened up the world, created the world, ruled over tens of thousands of gods and Buddhas, ruled over creation, and was eternal and indestructible. The powerful energy resonated with Zhu Hongwu's fist intent, forming an even more powerful force. The sealed altar was on the verge of collapsing. "Unfilial son, even though you managed to seal me for a while, I can tell that you have used up more qi than I have. Once I break this seal, you are weaker than me to begin with. Next, you can only surrender." Zhu Hongwu stared at Zhu Yi. The father and son looked at each other across the altar. "Today, I will clean up the sect." Zhu Yi also looked at Zhu Hongwu. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve. There was not the slightest hint of impatience. "I have said before that I know everything about you. Previously, you wanted to stall for time, and I did it with you. Why do you think it was?" Zhu Hongwu's brows furrowed. Shi Zongtang and the others who were watching the battle also came to their senses. Although they had not personally fought with Zhu Yi, the general style of the disciples of the celestial sect Master Lin Feng had already spread in the divine land. Everyone knew that Zhu Yi had always been clean and efficient. He rarely entangled with others. As long as the situation allowed it, he would always use a big move and kill his opponent instantly. However, in today's battle, although Zhu Hongwu did not use the Great Celestial Wheel, Zhu Yi also slowly fought with him for a long time. He did not take the initiative to use the Golden Paramitha Bridge. Admittedly, Zhu Hongwu was displaying his strength bit by bit, but Zhu Yi was also countering every move that came his way. This style was completely different from Zhu Yi's usual style. In the beginning, everyone thought that it was because he was fighting with Zhu Hongwu, who was both father and enemy. The special situation affected his decision. But now, it seemed that it was not the case. The first person to realize this was actually Zhu Hongwu. However, he was happy to stall for time and wait for Emperor Zhou's Liang Pan to be ready. But now, it seemed that Zhu Yi had succeeded before them. It was also because of Zhu Yi's action of stalling for time that Zhu Hongwu was vigilant and suspicious. At the same time, he was also numbed. As a result, he was careless and was sealed by Zhu Yi. What caught Zhu Hongwu's attention was that he seemed to have vaguely grasped Zhu Yi's thoughts. "You unfilial son, you." Zhu Hongwu stared at Zhu Yi. A light spot flew out from between Zhu Yi's eyebrows and flew up to the sky. A huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky and the 9 dazzling stars shone brightly. Everyone was stunned. Is that the 9 dazzling sky collapsing formation? Although the 9 lights heaven-shattering formation, which had been repaired and rearranged, was still far from its theoretical limit, under Zhu Yi's control, it did not turn into a fierce attack. Instead, it was infused into the barrier's seal, and the seal was instantly stabilized. As for Zhu Yi, he ended his saint chapter. The last paragraph of this shocking article only had one word. E. After writing the last word, Zhu Yi did not stop writing. He immediately started writing the second article. The first word of this article was E. As he wrote this article, the aura of the Dharma power around Zhu Yi changed and started to fluctuate. Zhu Hongwu, who was in the altar, was the first to understand. You broke the barrier in your heart through the battle with me. Now, you want to refine your spirit and return to the void? Zhu Yi said calmly, "That's right. My barrier isn't defeating you. That's something I have to do. It's not a barrier in my heart. From the moment I truly fought against you, the barrier in my heart had already been broken. After that, I accompanied you to buy time because I was polishing and organizing my own comprehension of the Tao. Now that I've finished organizing it, I naturally sealed you. However, you don't have to be anxious. After I finish my cultivation, we can have a good talk." Everyone was dumbfounded. He is playing with fire. He is using Zhu Hongwu, who is stronger than him, as a grindstone. In the sealed altar, Zhu Hongwu's expression finally changed. With a roar, the great celestial wheel appeared. But at the same time, a majestic golden bridge appeared out of nowhere and continued to suppress the seal. Chapter 1277. Some of the experts who had been defeated by Zhu Yi did not necessarily have weak techniques, but they had not been able to fully display their strength and had been defeated by Zhu Yi, leaving them with regrets. Zhu Hongwu was a veteran of hundreds of battles and was used to using his full strength to wipe out his opponent's hopes with the force of a thunderbolt. He came from the army, and what he valued was the final result of the battle, not the process. What Zhu Hongwu wanted was to be able to defeat and kill the enemy as quickly as possible without any accidents, and to have the situation firmly under his control. Unless there was a special reason or another plan. For example, today, Zhu Hongwu had not been able to display his strength. He naturally would not allow himself to fail. If Zhu Yi had used his full strength from the start, then he would have immediately adjusted his strategy. Although he had agreed with Liang Pan to delay for some time, if he was defeated quickly, then there was naturally no delay. Only a stalemate between evenly matched opponents could achieve the desired effect. However, unexpectedly, Zhu Yi did not immediately use his full strength. Instead, he seemed to have a tacit understanding with Zhu Hongwu, calmly dealing with each move as it came. This made it difficult for Zhu Hongwu to judge. Although he also cultivated the Buddhist Tao of karma, and could even be said to be one of the people in the world with the most profound understanding of the Buddhist Dharma, Zhu Yi's attainments in the Buddhist Dharma were also not shallow. Zhu Hongwu could not predict his intentions. Therefore, when they first started fighting, the situation had indeed fallen into a stalemate as Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu had hoped. However, the initiative was no longer in Zhu Hongwu's hands. Of course, it was not completely in Zhu Yi's hands. Both sides wanted to delay for time to complete their plans, so whoever was a step ahead naturally had the initiative to seek to break the stalemate. In the end, it was clear that Zhu Yi was a step faster, so he attacked first and took the initiative to seal Zhu Hongwu. Shi Zongtang and the others who understood this could not help but look at each other with complicated expressions. Zhu Hongwu has always been decisive and unbridled. Only Emperor Zhou Liangpan's imperial decree can restrain his hands and feet. However, it is precisely because of this unwavering will that Zhu Hongwu can have such great strength. It is really difficult to say what he has gained or lost. Of course, it wasn't that Zhu Hongwu didn't have a chance to make a comeback. Now that the situation had returned to a stalemate, if Zhu Hongwu could break through the enchantment barrier before Zhu Yi successfully returned to void stage, then he would undoubtedly have the upper hand. Inside the sealing barrier, there was endless light surging. One could only see the dazzling light, but nothing concrete could be seen. However, everyone could vaguely sense that there seemed to be an invisible roulette constantly spinning within that radiance. As the wheel rotated, it was as if the myriad worlds were rotating at the same time. The will of the entire great thousand world had awakened, and the thoughts of it were moving, shocking everyone. This was naturally the supreme treasure of the ancient heavenly gate, the creation Dharma treasure, the great wheel of heavens. As soon as the great heavenly wheel appeared, even though the 9 luminaries sky-shattering formation was about to gather the stars, Zhu Yi's barrier was instantly filled with cracks, as if it was about to shatter at any moment. However, right at this moment, a golden light flashed across the sky like a rainbow. Within the golden light, a magnificent golden bridge appeared. The golden bridge emitted tens of thousands of rays of light, and there were many flower buds around it. These flower buds bloomed one after another, and the petals unfolded one after another, falling in all directions like a deluge of heavenly flowers. There was also a faint celestial voice singing in the air. At first, it was inaudible, but in the end, it resounded throughout the entire universe. This was the creation Dharma treasure that belonged to Zhu Yi, the Golden Paramitha Bridge. The Golden Paramitha Bridge appeared and immediately suppressed the sealing barrier. As the golden light flashed, the sealing barrier instantly became complete again, sealing Zhu Hongwu and the great wheel of heavens within it. Zhu Hongwu looked coldly at Zhu Yi. Unfilial son, you only know how to use this small Tao. In the end, you will never become a great person. In the battle with Shao Qingqing in the past, you broke through to the late Yuanying stage, but do you think that the same method can be used on me? Although you have this golden Paramitha bridge, you are currently cultivating your spirit to return to the void. Your spirit, chi, and spirit can't be added to the Dharma treasure. How can it compare to the fusion of my power with the great will of heavens? Even with the 9 glory sky-shattering formation and the power of the stars, it is just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. This sealing barrier of yours, break for me. Zhu Hongwu raised the great wheel of heavens as if he was lifting up the world, and as if he was a devil god that wanted to destroy the creation, he bombarded and shook the golden Paramitha bridge and the sealing barrier. The great wheel of heavens is a weapon of slaughter. Its attack power is strong, and it is indeed extraordinary. At this moment, Zhu Yi's body landed on the golden Paramitha bridge. Under the bridge was the sealing barrier that sealed Zhu Hongwu. Zhu Yi's hands didn't stop, and he kept writing essays that started with the word E. At this moment, a majestic literary aura shot into the sky and kept spreading in all directions. It even caused the entire divine land to fluctuate. The aura of all the scholars in the world was gathered, and the sound of reading was endless, echoing in every corner of the human world. Later on, other than the scholars, other people's wills were also attracted by Zhu Yi. It was a kind of great wills that worked hard and kept forging ahead. Just like how the immortal dragon city condensed the wills of tens of thousands of human compatriots to work together and protect each other, at this moment, the majestic will of humanity was also added to Zhu Yi and the Golden Permitha Bridge. It was a kind of grand will that wanted to continuously surpass the past and not stop moving forward. It wanted to continuously work hard, be independent, and open up the future. It wanted to break through all obstacles and move forward. The text that Zhu Yi was writing at this moment had the same dharma and logos as the shocking chapter that caused 100 sages to resonate at the same time. However, it was even more profound. The first paragraph of his saint's chapter was meant to carry on the past and open up the future. It wanted to keep moving forward and open up endless possibilities in the future. It represented creation, the general trend of humanity, not sticking to the rules, not going with the flow, and always moving forward. The second paragraph was to break through all obstacles and surpass all hardships. It represented transcendence. The enemy would be surpassed, the difficulties would be surpassed, time would be surpassed, and the limits of the world would also be surpassed. Only the general trend of humanity would keep moving forward, forever without limit. The third paragraph seemed ordinary, but it had a deep meaning. It represented sharing, enlightenment, and guidance. It was willing to be the first in the world, to be the teacher of the world, to explain the principles of the sages. Whether the people were wise or foolish, as long as they were willing, they could accept enlightenment. After that, it was the word "E." Although it was only a word, it contained thousands of changes and countless possibilities. Zhu Yi slowly recited, "The general trend of humanity is to keep moving forward. How can there be an end? How can it stop moving forward? This E word is the end, but it is also a new beginning. The surging general trend will always move forward, endless." As he wrote this new chapter, a ball of light gradually condensed and flickered above his head. When this scene fell into the eyes of everyone, they all felt a chill in their hearts. They understood that this was Zhu Yi condensing his return to void dharma physique. Zhu Hongwu's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this scene. His martial Tao fist intent had fused with the great celestial wheel. Apart from the power of the great celestial wheel, Zhu Hongwu himself had also finally erupted with all his strength at this moment. His martial Tao true intent condensed into a huge corporeal wheel of light. A hole opened in the center of the wheel before it slowly descended. Zhu Hongwu himself punched forward, his fist passing through the hole in the center of the wheel of light. His martial Tao true intent and the power of his body's blood and qi perfectly fused at this moment. The wheel of light revolved around Zhu Hongwu's fist intent. Unlike when he was defending against Zhu Yi's attack earlier, Zhu Hongwu now put all his strength into his attack, raising the power of his attack and destruction to the extreme. When he punched out, space was completely shattered. It truly had the power to shatter the heavens and the earth. The expressions of the surrounding spectators all changed. What made them feel even more terrified was that the power of the great celestial wheel was also perfectly fused with Zhu Hongwu's fist. It continued to push forward, and the terrifying power seemed to be able to destroy the heavens at this moment. Even the Permitha bridge began to tremble slightly in the face of this punch. Zhu Yi looked at Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel and nodded slightly. "Your strength is completely above the Jade Sky Dragon King at his peak. In fact, it's not just by a little bit." However, Zhu Yi's hands were completely unsteady. Silently, he continued to write his own article. As he wrote this article, streams of air emerged from Zhu Yi's body and then merged into the light and shadow above his head. In the middle of the light and shadow, a Wenhua Tai Chi diagram was faintly visible. Silently, a Yi Dao talisman was flickering on the Tai Chi diagram. The streams of air that gathered in the diagram contained the orthodoxy of Tianmen, the orthodoxy of the king of the underworld, the orthodoxy of the ruthless emperor, the orthodoxy of Buddhism, and even the orthodoxy of the dark emperor and the sword principle of Mount Shu. Zhu Yi extracted the essence of all kinds of powerful Taoism and integrated them into his understanding of Taoism. The Yi Dao talisman continued to analyze and fuse them with his own Tao Te Ching as the foundation. Zhu Hongwu let out a long breath and shouted in a low voice. Suddenly, an unfathomable and indescribable light appeared on his body. It was neither dazzling nor resplendent, but it seemed to contain the infinite truth of the great Tao. Tao Master Luo Fu was shocked. The Taishu mystic light. Shi Zongtang and the others stared at Zhu Hongwu with strange eyes. Under the blessing of the Taishu mystic light, the power of Zhu Hongwu and the great wheel of heaven became more and more powerful. The bounded domain of the seal began to break, the golden nirvana bridge seemed to be forcibly overturned, and the 9 luminaries sky-falling formation also shook. Only Zhu Yi and Yu Hongyan, although a little surprised, were not so shocked. Yu Hongyan shouted and landed on the golden nirvana bridge with the wondrous shul tree. Standing beside Zhu Yi, the suppressing power of the wondrous shul tree was also added to the bounded domain of the seal, helping it to stabilize. The branches fluttered in the wind, and the dark golden light spread out, covering the surroundings, and also blocking the path of the outside world to attack Zhu Yi. Zhu Hongwu's face was livid. How could he not understand that everything was arranged by Xianmen Tianzong? Zhu Yi and the others speculated that his place of closed-door training was not in Tianjing City. Zhu Yi wanted to fight with him, but did not want others to intervene, so they sent Yu Hongyan to Shuefeng. They calculated that with his character, he would not directly return to Tianjing City, but would come here to cause trouble for Yu Hongyan. Zhu Yi left Hao Yang's clone with Yu Hongyan so that he could come at any time. At this moment, Zhu Yi's plan was progressing smoothly, and his wish was fulfilled. Yu Hongyan and the wondrous shul tree could protect him while he cultivated the spirit and returned to the void. With Shi Tianhao and Li Yuanfang blocking the side of Tianjing City, the Grand Imperial Palace could not leave, and the Xinwu army could not mobilize in large numbers. As long as these two forces could not arrive, the other forces of Great Zhou, whether it was the dragon-subduing tablet, the border warship, or the secretly subdued Bayan, could not do anything to the wondrous shul tree even if they attacked together. From the beginning, Xianmen Tianzong had the intention of using Zhu Hongwu as a whetstone for Zhu Yi while pressuring the Great Zhou. Chapter 1278. Zhu Hongwu's expression turned ice-cold, and his eyes burned with extreme anger. He had never been so angry in many years. Xianmen Tianzong's plan was to use him as a whetstone for Zhu Yi, a stepping stone. By fighting with him, Zhu Yi would be able to break through the last bottleneck, the last barrier in his heart, and enter the spirit refinement realm. Unfortunately, he had walked right into his opponent's trap. In the past, Zhu Hongwu had encountered his opponent's schemes, but most of the time, even when he knew there was a trap in front of him, he would still move forward without hesitation and use his powerful strength to crush it, turning his opponent's painstaking efforts into a joke. But today, from the original intention of Zhu Yi and the others to the process of how things had developed, he felt extremely humiliated and depressed. Zhu Hongwu stared at Zhu Yi, stared at Yu Hongyan, stared at the golden nirvana bridge, the wondrous Salo tree, and the 9 luminaries sky-cracking formation. His line of sight even penetrated through the layers of the void, looking at the city in the sky and the yin and yang life and death formation that enveloped Tianjing City. Behind all of this, he seemed to see a young man dressed in purple, his expression calm and his eyes shining with wisdom. Not long ago, not to mention Zhu Yi and Yu Hongyan, he did not even take the purple-clothed young man seriously. He firmly believed that his strength was enough to crush the purple-clothed young man to death. It was just that he had many other concerns, which prevented him from taking action. But he did not know when it started, but he could no longer stand in front of the young man as an equal. Now, even the young man's disciple had put him in such a predicament. It seemed that ever since the young man appeared, the great Zhou dynasty, which had always been determined to improve, began to suffer setbacks and took a sharp turn for the worse. The expression of Zhu Hongwu, who was suppressed in the ceiling barrier, became calm at this moment, and the anger in his eyes disappeared. From today onwards, everything has just begun. You, Xianmen Tianzong, have been used to having a smooth life all these years, so much so that other than your master, even you have become arrogant. You want to use me as a whetstone? I will break your blunt knife first. Unfilial son, you shall be the first core member of Xianmen Tianzong to fall. All of your schemes will only fail in the end. How long do you think that spirit formation of yours can last before me? As if to prove his words, Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial will continue to shake even with the help of the Sala wondrous tree and the support of the Taishu mystic light all day long. After all, Zhu Yi was cultivating to break through the realm and refine his spirit to return to the void. He was far from being able to attack wholeheartedly with Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel. Indeed, it won't take too long. You will eventually be able to escape, Zhu Yi said, but just like before, you are still slower than me. After he finished speaking, Zhu Yi, who had been sitting cross-legged, stood up from the Permitha Golden Bridge. His fingers kept writing. His brand new essay wasn't all that gorgeous. It wasn't like an ordinary essay that was full of flowers, but it revealed a simple truth of the great Tao. The aura of literary elegance overflowed and resonated in the entire human world of the divine land. It was as if it was guiding the general trend of the human race to move forward together with the support of the majestic power. The holy ancient robe on his body lit up with white light. Countless figures flashed in the light and countless voices of reciting the essay sounded. Those were the scholars of the past. They were triggered by the essay and connected the past and the present, resonating with the current trend of humanity. In a trance, the trend of humanity of the past dynasties seemed to be ringing at this moment. Zhu Yi and his essay were like a bridge that connected everything from ancient times to the present. The unceasing progress, the surging momentum, at this moment, was clearly linked together, gradually taking shape, supporting Zhu Yi's body. Everything seemed to flow smoothly and logically, becoming one with Zhu Yi. The light projection above Zhu Yi's head gradually solidified and turned into a 3 zhang tall figure. He wore a high crown and ancient robes, and his robes fluttered in the wind. Unfilial son, you want to cultivate the return to void Dharma body, but you're going to fail at the last step. If you had more time, even I wouldn't be able to stop you. But now, the slightest difference is the difference of 1,000 miles. This difference will determine your fate of defeat. Zhu Hongwu raised the great celestial wheel and his figure suddenly flickered as if he had thousands of clones. Countless silhouettes of Zhu Hongwu revolved around the great celestial wheel at this moment. Countless fist shadows flashed, and the fist intents were added to the great celestial wheel. The light wheel revolved with a loud rumble, crushing towards the ceiling barrier and the Permitha Golden Bridge. Among these fist shadows, Zhu Hongwu punched out fist will. Apart from his own fist will, there were also many seemingly right but actually wrong concepts. Looking closely, one could vaguely see the king of the underworld's orthodoxy, Shushan's sword Dao, and even the ancient Confucian orthodoxy's shadow. They were all integrated into Zhu Hongwu's martial arts fist will. You seem to know a lot of strange techniques and can see through and deduce all kinds of techniques. You do have some skill, but now that our qi and feelings are intertwined, I can see through the concepts of these Dao techniques. I don't need to learn them, I just need to channel them into my fist will. Zhu Hongwu said coldly, I've integrated the Heavenly Gate and Buddhist orthodoxy, and they are all techniques that can be comprehended by analogy. After I've integrated the Supreme Emperor's orthodoxy, the 3 techniques have become one, and I can control all the techniques in the world from top to bottom, bringing everything under my control. Unfilial son, you want to use me to sharpen your blade? In the end, you will help me reach a higher level. Not only these techniques, but I will also step on Xianmen Tianzong's Dao techniques. They will become the cornerstone of my martial arts, making me stronger and stronger. As he shouted, thousands of fist shadows rotated the great celestial wheel. The completely berserk light will seem to collapse at the same time, crushing towards Zhu Yi. The ceiling barrier shattered immediately. Even the 9-glory sky collapsing formation in the sky shook violently, as if the stars were about to fall. Zhu Hongwu's will was extremely firm. After the initial shock and anger, he quickly calmed down and pushed his strength to the limit, wanting to kill Zhu Yi and turn the tables. His and Liang Pan's plan was to make all the necessary preparations before taking action. He would first deal with Yu Hongyan and Zhu Yi, then turn around and return to Tianjing City to deal with Shi Tianhao and the others. Although he had fallen into Xianmen Tianzong's trap and gained the upper hand by a show of strength, Zhu Hongwu quickly adjusted his mentality and cut through the Gordian knot, hitting the key point. The key to the development of the situation ultimately depended on the battle between him and Zhu Yi. As long as he won, Xianmen Tianzong's previous successful plan would naturally be in vain. However, at this moment, Zhu Yi shouted, "You want to turn the tables? You can't do it. The torrential human Tao is the general trend, and everyone is working hard to improve themselves. However, you want to enslave everything and go against the trend. Even if you have a moment of glory, you are destined to be destroyed in the end. If you want to turn the tables, your opponent is not me, but the people of the world. How can you succeed?" As he shouted, Zhu Yi suddenly wrote the last word of his second article. There were a total of 2 strokes. 1 stroke and 1 stroke, but it was the word person. Once the article was completed, the figure of light above Zhu Yi's head was also completely formed. The figure was 3 feet tall, and its facial features were exactly like Zhu Yi himself. It wore a high hat and ancient clothes, and as the clothes fluttered, it blended into the void. It held an ancient book in its hand, and the words, "I Ching," were written on the cover. As the pages flipped, it could be seen that there were words on the first few pages of the book. It was Zhu Yi's second article, and the pages after that were blank. This blank space did not seem empty, but instead seemed to contain countless possibilities, and could bear the weight of countless wonderful truths. The unknown was understood as the known, and the known extended to even more unknown. The two were born from each other, endless, and included everything known and unknown. The sea of learning was boundless, and there was no end to learning. In the process of continuous exploration and learning, people turned the unknown into the known, and used various methods to sense things and principles that they could not sense before, understand things and principles that they could not understand before, and grasp things and principles that they could not grasp before. This was the process of the human Tao's continuous advancement. On the forehead of the figure of light, there was a black and white Tai Chi diagram. Slowly, it seemed to contain all the profound truths of the world. This 3 feet tall figure was Zhu Yi's void return Dharma body. The figure descended and merged with Zhu Yi's entire body. Then, he opened his eyes, and streams of light shot out from his pupils. The entire divine land was filled with the sound of reading. In the great Zhou dynasty's Tianjing city, and in the great Qin dynasty's Shiling city, the statues of the past sages and sages in the great Zhou dynasty's Tianjing city all trembled at this moment. Zhu Yi, who had transformed into a 3 feet tall statue of a sage, lowered his head and looked down. He was facing the figure of Zhu Hongwu, who was controlling the great celestial wheel to attack him. Zhu Yi's foot paused slightly, and he shouted, "The sea of bitterness is boundless, and boats are hard to find. I will raise the golden bridge, cross the sea of bitterness, and lead all living beings to the other side." As he shouted, colorful halos lit up on the Permitha golden bridge. On the basis of the original 7th halo, there was an additional 8th halo. There was also a faint 9th halo that flashed and disappeared in a flash. The Permitha golden bridge, which was enveloped by the 8 halos, suddenly became even more magnificent under the support of Zhu Yi's surging magic power. Streaks of golden light hung down like silk ribbons, sprinkling over the heaven and earth. The golden bridge carried Zhu Yi down, and it collided with the great celestial wheel that was trying to overturn the Permitha golden bridge. The void was directly annihilated, and the myriad domains twisted violently at this moment. Dazzling white light flashed, intertwining with the chaos after the void was destroyed. It was as if the world before them had been beaten back to the prehistoric era. Under the shocked gazes of everyone, Zhu Yi and the Permitha golden bridge stood unmoving, while Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel were directly knocked back. Without waiting for Zhu Hongwu to make his next move, Zhu Yi's voice resounded through the void, "Are you confident that your martial path can control the heavens? You'll be second only to one and above millions, helping Emperor Zhou to rule and enslave all lives. Then take my Permitha divine fist first. Let's see if you can take it." As he spoke, Zhu Yi's void return stage physique fused with the Permitha golden bridge, and he transformed into an indomitable golden giant. The 8 halos on his head shone brightly, illuminating the world. As soon as the giant appeared, he punched out, and the vital energy of the heavens and earth exploded. Under this punch, the tens of thousands of fist shadows that Zhu Hongwu had wrapped around the great celestial wheel were all shattered, and the great celestial wheel that suppressed the heavens was once again knocked back. Chapter 1279. Zhu Yi's return to void Dharma body merged with the golden Paramitha bridge. At this moment, the powerful Dharma treasure of creation, the Paramitha bridge, was his body. In terms of strength and power, it surpassed Zhu Hongwu's powerful body that had been tempered thousands of times. At this moment, both sides were fighting with the power of martial arts. If it wasn't for the existence of the great celestial wheel, Zhu Hongwu would have suffered a great loss. Even so, the terrifying power of Zhu Yi's punch still blasted Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel backward. Zhu Hongwu's fist shadow that was revolving the great celestial wheel was shattered by Zhu Yi's punch. The graceful and mysterious all-sky mysterious light of great void lit up and supported Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel, helping him to stabilize his body. Otherwise, Zhu Hongwu might even be injured by this punch. Even so, the all-sky mysterious light of great void flickered non-stop and dimmed a little. Zhu Hongwu suddenly raised his head and stared at Zhu Yi. His expression became extremely solemn. The golden giant that Zhu Yi had transformed into was still maintaining the posture of punching out, standing tall in the void. His fist seal contained many principles and concepts, and he had mastered them thoroughly. Every move he made, every punch and every kick he made was filled with immense power. Zhu Yi had already started to study this punch during the War of the Two Realms. At that time, he combined the Buddhist martial arts, the Astro-Sovereign martial arts, and Xianmen Tianzong's own martial arts. The 3 punches combined into one and the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. The Blue Sky Dragon King didn't dare to face it head-on. At that time, many martial arts hadn't truly combined yet. Zhu Yi had used 3 punches in a row to attract the qi of heaven and earth to condense the fist intent. At this moment, when he punched out, many martial arts intents fused together and instantly formed a powerful fist intent that seemed like it was going to tear apart the boundless sea of bitterness and guide all living beings to the other shore. It forcefully pushed Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial will back. This fist is called Paramitha. It is a divine bridge that leads all living beings to Paramitha. At the same time, it will also bury those who stand in its way in the sea of bitterness under the bridge, the golden giant said. Zhu Yi's voice reverberated through the surrounding space. Shi Zongtang, Dao Master Luo Fu, Bei Rong First Chanyu, and the others looked solemnly at Zhu Yi, who looked like an indomitable giant god. With such power, he can already fight head-on with a grand demon in the Dharma-ending realm. Zhu Hongwu stared at Zhu Yi and said coldly, "Unfilial son, do you think you are qualified to compete with me in martial arts? Do you think you can use your power freely? It's just like a 3-year-old child swinging 1,000 caddy sledgehammer. Since you want to humiliate yourself, I'll fulfill your wish." As Zhu Hongwu spoke, his figure flashed and he reunited with the great celestial wheel. He punched continuously. At this moment, the vigorous fist intent turned into light wheels one after another, hanging on the great celestial wheel, causing smaller wheels to hang around the great celestial wheel. Zhu Hongwu's figure disappeared, and there seemed to be an invisible giant in the void, reaching out to grab the great celestial wheel and then waving it. The smaller wheels on the great celestial wheel collided with each other, continuously striking against the great celestial wheel, giving off a loud sound that shook the void. It was not deep, sharp, resounding, or muffled, but it was as if all the worlds in the universe were shaking at the same time. At this moment, everyone seemed to hear the sound of small worlds and foreign spaces being destroyed at the same time. The great celestial wheel drew a mysterious trajectory in the void and smashed toward the golden giant formed by the combination of Zhu Yi and the Paramitha Golden Bridge. The trajectory was so unpredictable and unfathomable. All sorts of true martial intents merged together, but it was not to clash head-on with Zhu Yi. Instead, it was aimed at his vitals. The combination of Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel's power, if Zhu Yi did not resist and his weak points were hit, the consequences would be worrying. Zhu Hongwu now wanted to use the changes in martial way that he was proficient in to defeat the enemy and break the strength with skill. Under the premise that the difference in strength between the two sides was not big enough, it was not impossible for the one who was more experienced and skilled to win. Seeing Zhu Hongwu's changes, the spectators nodded slightly. At the end of the day, even with the Permitha Golden Bridge as his body, Zhu Yi was still using his weakness to attack the enemy's strength at this moment. In a battle of life and death, Zhu Hongwu naturally would not waste any advantage that he could use. Zhu Yi's carelessness was Zhu Yi's problem. What he needed to do was to seize the enemy's weakness and defeat the enemy. Zhu Yi did not intend to avoid it at all. Above the head of the golden giant, there was a huge E character. The next moment, the huge golden giant suddenly turned into a golden light and disappeared. He had already avoided the attack of the great celestial wheel and appeared behind Yi Shao. He reached out his hand to grab the great celestial wheel. His movement was simple and casual. The huge body that filled the heaven and earth showed a sense of lightness. The people present did not feel that it was contradictory. Instead, they felt that it was very harmonious. Zhu Hongwu's voice came from the great celestial wheel, the martial way of the Astro-Royal bloodline. The huge light wheel also turned in the void and avoided the palm of the golden giant. The two of them instantly fought many times, back and forth. The two of them tore the sky, went up to the sky and down to the ground, broke through the boundaries of the boundless world, and fought all the way to the endless outer space. One after another, stars were destroyed in the process of fighting. The martial arts of the Astro-Royal bloodline, the ruthless royal bloodline, the martial arts of the Buddhism sect, and other martial arts of the Astro-Royal bloodline, were easily used by Zhu Yi, including his own Permitha divine fist. Everything was done according to the situation, and it was the best solution for the current situation. As the fight went on, he even used the martial arts recorded in the Tai Huang scripture that he got from the Marquis Jing Huang Liangan, such as the Overlord's Order and the 5 Mountains Falling Sky. Zhu Hongwu's heart kept sinking. Up to this point, in terms of martial arts attainments and close combat experience, Zhu Yi still couldn't compare with him. Zhu Yi was deducing with his own scripture of changes, and these changes had already become a part of Zhu Hongwu's body instinctively, engraved on his spirit and body at the same time. But the problem was, in terms of pure power, Zhu Yi was more powerful than Zhu Yi at the moment. Not only the body that was formed by the Permitha bridge, but all kinds of spells and skills were also strengthened by Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi dared to fight head-on, but Zhu Hongwu was slightly inferior. This made it difficult for Zhu Hongwu to defeat Zhu Yi even though his martial arts were better. Many times, there were changes that could not be changed, and there was no way to avoid. When he had to fight head-on, he had to use up all the Taishu mystic light in order to regroup and not let Zhu Yi forcibly tear through his defense. What made Zhu Hongwu disappointed was that in the process of fighting with him, Zhu Yi's subtle changes in martial arts improved at a terrifying speed. Moreover, Zhu Hongwu could faintly feel that Zhu Yi's understanding of his martial arts was getting deeper and deeper. As the two of them fought, Zhu Hongwu, who was clearly superior in martial arts attainments, fell into a disadvantageous position as the fight went on. And when the Taishu mystic light was exhausted, his chances of winning became even slimmer. Father, you have remarkable powers. In terms of your supernatural powers and dharmic powers, although you have just reached the void return and path integration realm, you have already surpassed countless path integration realm cultivators in the world. At this moment, Zhu Yi said in a gentle tone, in a battle of life and death, even the great sage Zhu Jian of the demon clan who died at the hands of my third junior brother may not be a match for you. In today's divine land, outside of the Xianmen, among the cultivators below the Dharma ending realm, I'm afraid you can be ranked in the top 5. Zhu Yi punched out, forcing Zhu Hongwu to retreat. His tone was gentle as usual, as if he was having a casual chat with Zhu Hongwu. However, his tone suddenly changed. Unfortunately, it's useless. You are no longer a match for me now. Defeating you is a piece of cake for me. The great celestial will suddenly disappeared, revealing only Zhu Hongwu's figure. However, the aura on his body became extremely vast and fierce. He crouched down and suddenly pounced in front of the golden giant that Zhu Yi had transformed into. His hands formed into claws and grabbed at Zhu Yi's abdomen, as if he wanted to cut open Zhu Yi's abdomen. Easy. Sage. Guide all living beings to the other side. With such a strong obsession, you can't even reach the other side yourself. How can you guide others? Zhu Hongwu laughed instead of being angry. I have to admit that your growth has exceeded my expectations, unfilial son. However, if you want to defeat me, wait until you have fused with the void and Tao. Today, I will turn this obsession of yours into a nightmare that you will never be able to escape from. If Zhu Hongwu's ferocious attack landed, even great demons like the White Tiger Great Sage, the Blue Sky Dragon King, and the Bright Serene Slayer would have their bodies broken. Zhu Yi stood proudly in the void, as if he didn't care at all. He stood in the void without dodging. With a light shout, he transformed into a giant qilin. His four hooves stomped down towards Zhu Hongwu, and a majestic power that could suppress the heaven and earth spread out. Among the qilin's four hooves, one was like a Buddha taking a step and stomping down. Another was like a Taihuang reaching out his hand, and his 5 fingers turned into 5 mountains that held up the sky and suppressed the earth. One was like the rotation of the heavens, and all worlds collapsed at the same time, crashing down together. The last step was like the shifting of the stars, and the sea of stars rolled back. Golden light shone around the qilin, and the 8 halos shone brightly. The vast power told Zhu Hongwu that if he didn't defend himself, he would be trampled to death even if he could break open the qilin's chest. Zhu Hongwu's eyes flashed, and the mysterious great void mystic light surged again and enveloped his body. His figure suddenly flashed, and he retreated rapidly without any obstruction. He dodged the qilin's 2 hind hooves, and then he used the heavenly king holding the pagoda to resist the qilin's 2 front hooves with his palms. He used the rebounding force to continue retreating and regroup. However, at this moment, the qilin formed by the combination of Zhu Yi and the Permitha Golden Bridge suddenly transformed into a magnificent golden light again, and it wrapped around Zhu Hongwu's body and wrapped around him. The boundless light shook violently. Zhu Hongwu's body shook, and he actually broke away from the great celestial wheel. The Permitha Golden Bridge also broke away from Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi's tone was gentle, and no anger could be heard. That is not my obsession. It is just a fact in front of everyone, a fact that you are not willing to admit. Now it seems that it is your obsession, not mine. I don't even need to activate the 9 glory sky collapsing formation, and I don't need to ask the miraculous Shaluo tree from 4th junior sister. I am one person and one bridge, and I am one will better than you. As he spoke, many airflows appeared on Zhu Yi's body, and all kinds of great Tao were revealed. There were Buddhist orthodoxies, Heavenly Gate orthodoxies, King of the Underworld orthodoxies, Ruthless Sovereign orthodoxies, Astro Sovereign orthodoxies, and Dark Sovereign orthodoxies. However, at this moment, under the guidance of Zhu Yi's Xianmen magic power, all the great Tao rushed to different directions in the void, and then they were all destroyed together. A terrifying, destructive, and powerful force blasted toward Zhu Hongwu, who had lost the great celestial wheel. The Taishu mystic light that filled the sky was being worn down at this moment, and Zhu Hongwu only felt that all the acupoints in his body were trembling non-stop. The martial arts fist intent that had condensed above his head started to break, and the energy and magic power in his body seemed to be going berserk at the same time, about to burst his body. At this moment, the universe outside his body and the universe inside his body seemed to be destroyed together at this moment. This technique is based on my Book of Changes, and it is called the Absolute Tao of 10 Directions. However, I have just reached the Void Return initial stage, so I can only destroy the 6th Tao for the first time. I will give it to you, Father. Chapter 1280. 10 Directions was not just limited to the number 10, but it encompassed tens of thousands and had an endless meaning. Zhu Yi's absolute way of 10 directions was not just limited to 10 types of Tao techniques, but all of the Tao techniques that he had comprehended other than the Tao Te Ching that he himself, Xianmen Tianzong, had comprehended. All along, Zhu Yi's magical powers and techniques were extensive and orderly, and he was the most profound among all the disciples under Lin Feng. However, he had always lacked offensive techniques. Compared to others, Zhu Yi's magical powers and techniques were not lacking in lethality, but from his point of view, this was indeed a shortcoming. In the past, Lin Feng had bestowed upon him the first instrument of the Golden Elixir period, the Seven Evils dragon-slaying sword, which was a pure instrument of killing. After the war between the two worlds, Zhu Yi had comprehended it carefully under the guidance of Lin Feng, and he had also interacted with Xiao Yan, Wang Lin, and the others. Now that he had mastered all that he had learned, he used the Book of Changes that he had comprehended through the Heavenly Virtue Scripture as the foundation to create the Absolute Way of 10 Directions technique. Once the technique was unleashed, everything in 10 directions would be destroyed. This technique swept across the void in an instant, and Zhu Hongwu only felt that all the acupoints in his body were like volcanoes that were about to erupt, and he could not control himself. For him, who had controlled his body to the finest detail, this was unprecedented. Even though Zhu Hongwu had always had a strong will, at this moment, his expression changed. The Taishu mystic light around him flickered continuously at this moment, and it had lost its usual ordinary but unpredictable characteristic. If it was not for the protection of the mystic light, Zhu Hongwu's current situation would undoubtedly be even worse. However, the Taishu mystic light that filled the sky was constantly being worn down at this moment, and it was gradually decreasing. "How dare you, unfilial son!" Zhu Hongwu made a prompt decision. With a low growl, he suddenly stopped suppressing the violent essence, qi, and mana in his acupoints. Instead, he allowed this power to explode, and he activated the ferocious fist force. It was as if the power of the deities were added to his body at the same time, and then he punched towards Zhu Yi. At this moment, Zhu Hongwu could vaguely feel his inner universe shattering. His bones, meridians, blood vessels, organs, and acupoints were all cracking apart. However, he turned a blind eye to this and continued to attack Zhu Yi with an unstoppable momentum. Because his inner verse had completely lost control and exploded, the power he exerted outside had also become unprecedentedly powerful. In an instant, it erupted in an attempt to kill Zhu Yi. At this moment, he did not even use the Taishu arcane light to protect himself. Instead, he swept it up and threw it into the attack, making the violent attack illusory and unpredictable. Zhu Yi formed the Vajra seal with his left hand and clenched his right hand into a fist. He put his hands together and pushed them forward. A huge Vajra spirit turtle appeared and covered his entire body. Boom! Zhu Hongwu's fist force bombarded the diamond spirit turtle's back. The turtle's body cracked, but it didn't break. The Taishu arcane light continued to shine, but the shadow of a true dragon suddenly appeared on the diamond spirit turtle's body. As it wandered, it let out a long roar that shook the 9 heavens, resisting the Taishu arcane light. After all, Zhu Hongwu did not cultivate the Taishu arcane light by himself. Now that he was being attacked, it was difficult for him to react flexibly. And when his attack missed, the void in his inner universe vibrated even more violently. Blood seeped out of his orifices. Zhu Yi's absolute way swept through the endless space, shaking both inside and outside. It made Zhu Hongwu feel like his body was about to shatter. Zhu Hongwu's body, which had been tempered thousands of times and was even stronger than many great demons in the first tribulation stage, was now riddled with scars from inside to outside. Countless small scars accumulated together, making Zhu Hongwu's body extremely fragile at this moment, as if it would break at any time. Zhu Yi looked at Zhu Hongwu and calmly said, "Victory and defeat have been decided. Follow me to my mother's grave. You don't have to worry about Tianjing City. If His Majesty, the Emperor of Zhou, is willing to issue an edict and sincerely correct his past mistakes, he will not make things difficult for him in the future. However, we have to make a trip back to the Marquis' manor together. Xiao Qingsheng and her clone, Madame Xiao, killed my mother in the past. Madame Xiao has to pay for it with her life, and Xiao Qingsheng has to cripple her primordial spirit as well. She has to guard my mother's grave for the rest of her life. All these years, the Xiao family has engaged in human trafficking, disregarded human life, and committed many illegal acts. The evidence is conclusive, but under the protection of you and the Eastern Heavenly Gate, no one dares to touch them. Now, they have to be punished and receive the punishment they deserve. Between him and Zhu Hongwu, besides the relationship of flesh and blood, there was no father-son relationship, only hatred. Defeating Zhu Hongwu and fulfilling his wish of many years caused Zhu Yi's thoughts to be incomparably clear at this moment. However, he didn't have any sense of complacency. His tone was calm and didn't reveal the slightest trace of arrogance. However, when those calm words fell into Zhu Hongwu's ears, his gaze froze. At this moment, what Zhu Yi said about making Zhou Diliang admit his crimes wasn't just a simple act. It meant that the great Zhou Empire's many years of hard work would all go to waste, and from now on, there would be no chance for them to rise again. For Zhu Yi to capture him and bring him to the Marquis' manor in Tianjing City to arrest Madame Xiao Qingcheng, and the others, to sentence them to prison, was a slap in the face to him, an unbearable humiliation. Not to mention that Zhu Yi wanted to bring him to Meng Bingyin's coffin to kowtow and admit his mistakes. This was something he absolutely couldn't accept. Zhu Hongwu stared at Zhu Yi, his eyes cold and murderous. Unfilial son, even if I die, I won't let you get what you want. As he spoke, he forcefully suppressed his injuries and once again erupted his power, attacking Zhu Yi. At the same time, he communicated with the great celestial will mentally. Under the connection of his power, he wanted to shake off the Permitha Golden Bridge and reunite with Zhu Hongwu. Zhu Yi said, "How can it be so easy for you to sacrifice yourself?" Circulatory cycle revolution, suppression of the four symbols. He raised his hand, and purple chi surged. A huge spirit turtle, a virtuous qilin, a noble phoenix, and a majestic azure dragon were all manifested from his magic power. The power of the four spirits fused together, gradually forming a huge halo. The true meaning of the circulatory cycle perfection was undoubtedly revealed. The great circulatory cycle formation of the four symbols pressed down on Zhu Hongwu, causing all the bones in his body to creak. Zhu Yi stretched out one hand and spread his fingers, then suddenly clenched it. The perfect halo suddenly twisted violently at this moment, turning into an extremely domineering power that crushed Zhu Hongwu, breaking the momentum of his fist. It was the technique of the circulatory cycle destruction. As Zhu Hongwu roared, the remaining Taishu mystic light around him surged, causing him to seem to be in an untouchable place, isolated from this world, avoiding Zhu Yi's circulatory cycle destruction. At this moment, a voice sounded in Zhu Hongwu's mind, "Hongwu, quickly return to Tianjing. It's impossible. Let's go to Yinghai and plan for the future." That was the voice of Emperor Zhou, Liang Pan. Hearing Liang Pan's words, hesitation appeared on Zhu Hongwu's face for the first time. Although he already understood how powerful Zhu Yi was, he could not retreat in front of Zhu Yi with his dignity. However, Liang Pan could not resist Liang Pan's imperial order. To him, disobeying the imperial order was even more unacceptable. However, Liang Pan had already made the decision for him. Zhu Hongwu's body suddenly shook violently, and a token at his waist flashed with golden light. Instantly, a huge formation expanded, and the center of the formation was connected to the void. In the center of the void, from the endless distance, a magnificent Buddha light appeared. Its power was so great that it shook the world. Zhu Yi looked up and saw a golden Buddha statue appearing from the void. The surface of the Buddha statue was extremely dazzling, as if it was about to burn. Zhu Yi took a look at the golden body and already recognized it. The golden body of Analuchuo. Two of the golden bodies left behind by the 10 disciples of the Gautama Buddha were harvested by the great Zhou dynasty. The golden body in front of him was left behind by Analuchuo, who was known as the number 1 heavenly eye among the 10 disciples because he could see all living beings in the 6 realms of heaven and earth. At this moment, this golden body was using the sacrifice to ascend to nirvana technique to burn itself completely, exploding with astonishing power. It supported a special ritual, wanting to bring Zhu Hongwu away. My emperor's foundation is more important than anything else. Unfilial son, I will definitely take revenge for today's humiliation in the future. Seeing this, Zhu Hongwu roared angrily towards the sky. Finally, he gave up on the idea of fighting to the death with Zhu Yi. His figure flickered and instantly shifted, pouncing to the side of the Permitha golden bridge that was wrestling with the great celestial wheel. Then, he fiercely punched out. His martial Dao fist intent and the concept of the great celestial wheel's power merged. The great celestial wheel suddenly rotated, and the terrifying attack power was pushed to the extreme, forcefully shaking off the Permitha golden bridge. As for Analuchuo's golden body, it burned all its power together and seemed to have come back to life. However, its facial expression was still stiff, but the 6-meter-tall golden body pointed a finger at Zhu Yi, blocking Zhu Yi's path. With a point of his finger and another palm, the Buddha light manifested into a boundless world. All the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and diviners chanted sutras together. Countless temples and pagodas stood in great numbers, like a paradise. This was the Buddhist divine ability, Buddhist kingdom in a palm. The burning golden body lifted and flipped its palm, wanting to pull Zhu Yi into the world in his palm. Zhu Yi's finger rode in the void. Although paradise is good, how can it stop me from moving forward? Keep forging ahead, keep surpassing, cross the sea of suffering, and reach the other shore. The other shore is not the end. His saint chapter was written, and it kept surpassing and moving forward. The unstoppable concept of power couldn't be dispersed, and the light and dark characters turned into rays of golden rainbows. It was like a bridge that supported Zhu Yi, preventing him from entering the Buddhist kingdom in a palm. At the same time, Zhu Yi raised his other hand high up, and the 9 dazzling sky collapsing formation in the sky shone brightly again. Why do you think I brought the 9 dazzling sky collapsing formation here? Is it just to protect you? The sky split open, and the golden luminosity star shone brightly. A dazzling platinum pillar of light shot out from the center of the formation, and it was like a divine sword that could split heaven and earth apart. At the same time, the golden nirvana bridge transformed into a rainbow that pierced through the sky. Zhu Yi's return to void stage Dharma body landed on the golden bridge, and it instantly traversed the boundless world and forcibly pierced through Analuchuo's Buddhist kingdom in a palm. The golden bridge displayed a domineering might at this moment, and it was as if it was going to crush all obstacles in its way. Together with the 9 dazzling sky collapsing formation, it crashed toward Analuchuo's golden body, Zhu Hongguo, and the great heavenly wheel. You want to escape? Where's your arrogance? Where's your dominance? Where's your might? Where are you now? Chapter 1281. Zhu Yi merged with the golden bridge of the Permitha realm, and a ferocious force swept through the heavens. 8 colorful halos were added to the golden bridge of the Permitha realm, and the heavenly cycle seemed to have turned into the 9th halo. Under Zhu Yi's control, the 9 luminaries sky collapsing formation opened up in the sky, and the 9 luminaries circulated. The gold Venus star was unprecedentedly bright, and a dazzling platinum light beam fell. Even if Analuchuo's golden body burned with the art of extreme bliss, he would not be able to block such a powerful attack. Analuchuo's golden body burned, and not only did it resist Zhu Yi, but it also completed the secret technique to send Zhu Hongguo and the great celestial will away. Under the guidance of the Buddha's light, the man and the treasure seemed to have stepped on a golden path, and they quickly escaped into the void. On the other side of the void, a majestic and domineering immortal palace could be vaguely seen, and it was the Grand Imperial Palace. However, the golden bridge of the Permitha realm turned into a magnificent rainbow, and it instantly traversed the endless space, and hit Zhu Hongguo and the great celestial wheel. Being guided by the golden bridge of the Permitha realm, the attack of the 9 luminaries sky collapsing formation also traversed the void, and the platinum light beam slashed towards Zhu Hongguo like a divine sword. Zhu Hongguo roared, and his body transformed into thousands of clones again. Countless fist shadows waved, and they clustered around the great celestial wheel, causing it to spin rapidly. Countless light wheels seemed to appear at the same time, and they were all the same size. However, there was a powerful force concept and profound truth within them. At least, when Zhu Yi saw this scene, he thought of the truth of heaven and earth that he comprehended. Using 9 to see a group of dragons without a leader was auspicious. All the great Taos of heaven and earth were connected, and Zhu Hongwu's transformation showed the same truth. He defended with all his strength, but even so, he was still scattered by the attack of Zhu Yi, the golden bridge of the Permitha realm, and the 9 luminaries sky collapsing formation. Countless light wheels shattered, and the great celestial wheel and Zhu Hongwu were almost separated from each other. If it wasn't for Analuchuo's golden body blocking the attack, Zhu Hongwu, who was already injured, would immediately suffer another serious injury. As if sensing the extreme danger of the situation, Analuchuo's golden body kept shaking. He suddenly put his palms together, and his body, which was already burning, started to shatter at this moment. He transformed into a giant swastika symbol and descended toward Zhu Yi and the Permitha Golden Bridge. He wanted to suppress Zhu Yi and the Golden Bridge temporarily. At this moment, Zhu Hongwu couldn't even lift the Great Celestial Wheel. He could only stand together with the Great Celestial Wheel and fly backward under the guidance of the Buddha light. Under his control, the Great Celestial will block the second strike of the 9 luminaries sky-shattering formation that drew upon the power of the wood element. As for the remaining portion of the heavenly void mystic light that was on the brink of destruction, he activated it and turned it into a light screen that enveloped Yu Hongyan and the wondrous Sala tree. Zhu Hongwu stared at Zhu Yi. His expression returned to calmness, but his eyes were incomparably cold. "Unfilial son, you have indeed surprised me. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have allowed a tiger to grow in my bosom that day. As a result, I allowed you to do such a disobedient thing today." Zhu Hongwu said coldly, "I won't make a similar mistake again. From today onwards, I will use the strategy of slaughtering an army and destroying a country to clean up my sect." Zhu Yi stood on the Permitha Golden Bridge. When he heard this, his expression didn't change. "Let's have a good talk about our grievances today." His eyes suddenly flickered. Then, a figure floated out from his 10-meter-tall void-returned Dharma body. It was a young scholar dressed in purple. He had the appearance of Zhu Yi. However, his eyes were tightly shut and he didn't have any aura. He was like a clay puppet or a walking corpse. Zhu Hongwu's eyes suddenly focused. He had already recognized that this was Zhu Yi's original physical body. Zhu Yi wasn't a martial cultivator. Thus, when he formed his primordial spirit, he integrated his original physical body into his primordial spirit incarnation. Usually, when he manifested his human form, it was his primordial spirit. At this moment, he had separated his physical body from his primordial spirit. This physical body was raised by his parents. It was the original body that Zhu Yi had obtained from his parents, Zhu Hongwu and Meng Bingyun. Zhu Yi's expression was calm. "Regardless of what my mother thought of marrying with you back then, or what plans she had after giving birth to me, there are still feelings between me and my mother. Even if I break free from the womb, even if I die and reincarnate, we won't be related by blood. As long as I don't lose my memories, we will still be mother and son. And between us, the only connection we have is our blood. This body was given to me by you, and I'm returning it to you now." Zhu Yi's voice reverberated in the air. Amidst his calm and peaceful voice, there was an unshakable determination in it. In the next instant, the physical body next to Zhu Yi's void-returned Dharma body shattered and disintegrated, turning into a mist of blood that filled the sky. Looking at this scene, Zhu Hongwu's eyes were unprecedentedly solemn. He could feel Zhu Yi's determination. In front of him, Zhu Yi released his own physical body and sent it into nirvana. It was like Taoism's corpse disintegration reincarnation, completely breaking away from the bloodline. This was different from having one's physical body destroyed by an outsider. Instead, Zhu Yi did it himself. If he didn't become a primordial spirit, it would be the same as killing himself. Corpse disintegration reincarnation was to cut off the fate of one's previous life, break away from the shackles of bloodline, and be reborn as a human. Zhu Yi pointed his finger, and the omnidirectional Tao was activated again. The vital energy in all directions went berserk, and all the great Taos were destroyed at the same time. The terrifying explosive force shook off the swastika character formed by Analuchuo's golden body above his head. Then, under his control, the Permitha bridge turned into a long rainbow and swept across the void. In the sky above, the nine-glory sky collapsing formation triggered the third strike of the celestial water star. The aqua-blue light pillar and the mighty golden light intertwined in the dark void, and the point of intersection was Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial wheel. In the midst of Zhu Hongwu's angry roar, his incomparably powerful physical body began to shatter inch by inch. Every bone began to disintegrate, every meridian began to rupture, and every acupoint began to break. All the blood in his body surged to his temples, and it was throbbing. The luster of the great celestial will dimmed instantly, and it was also heavily damaged. At this moment, Zhu Yi waved his hand, and his own broken physical body and blood suddenly turned into a blood arrow, fell beside Zhu Hongwu, and integrated into his body. Although Zhu Yi's physical body wasn't strong, this bloodline that came from the same origin rapidly merged with Zhu Hongwu's body, and helped him stabilize his broken physical body. Zhu Hongwu finally understood what Zhu Yi meant when he said that he would return everything to him. However, at this moment, he only felt extreme anger. It was the anger of being looked down upon and humiliated. Even though he was born in the army, and he always believed that the slightest bit of mercy to the enemy was cruelty to himself, and he believed that the enemy's pedantry was the reason for his defeat, and he didn't deserve any sympathy or respect, but at this moment, when Zhu Yi returned his flesh and blood to him, it still made him unprecedentedly angry. No matter how strong and stable his will was, he couldn't continue to remain calm. "You unfilial son!" Zhu Hongwu raised his head and roared. The swastika symbol formed by the analutual golden body and the remaining great void mystic light surged crazily, as if they were at the end of their rope. Zhu Yi's return to void dharma body stood on the Permitha golden bridge with his hands clasped behind his back. Silently, he said, "Stop calling me unfilial son. From now on, you and I are not related by blood, whether it's feelings, thoughts, ideas, bloodline, kinship, or ethics. We don't owe each other anything." The pure white holy ancient robe appeared above Zhu Yi's head, and the Dharma treasure origin spirit that looked like a great scholar appeared. Its body made of light and shadow became more and more dazzling, radiating dazzling light that illuminated the sky. Majestic and mysterious magic power spread out in all directions, and the great Tao of heaven and earth connected with the holy ancient robe before being guided to the Dharma treasure origin spirit. In the next moment, the light and shadow condensed into a solid body. When the old man opened his eyes, he seemed to have become a powerful life that was independent of heaven and earth. Today, as Zhu Yi completed the spirit refinement returned to void and completed the sutra transformation, the holy ancient robe also successfully reached the Mahayana stage. The Dharma treasure origin spirit flashed in the void and disappeared. At this moment, the white robe that had fused with its body and carried the meaning of thousands of years of knowledge and the desire of countless scholars seemed to have fused with the blazing human Tao at this moment. The robe fell down and was worn on Zhu Yi's body again. Its majestic appearance spread throughout the entire void. At this moment, the entire divine land seemed to be chanting and reverberating incessantly. Everyone was united and worked hard to move forward together. The powerful human Tao will that never stopped resonated together. In a trance, it pierced through the past, spanned across the present, and led to the future. Zhu Yi stepped on the Nirvana bridge, his magnificent power completely suppressing the final eruption of the symbol, swastika, and the sky full of Taishu mystic light. At the same time, the fourth strike of the nine dazzling sky collapsing formation also fell. The crimson pillar of light and the majestic golden bridge once again converged in the void of the universe. Blood spurted out from Zhu Hongwu's body again. Essence blood gushed out from every pore like a nebula and dyed the entire void. The great celestial will also let out low hums as if it couldn't bear the burden. The grand imperial palace that was faintly discernible in the void in the distance suddenly became clear, and a thought wave that was clearly filled with shock and anger came from it. The golden light ritual operated to its limit and finally brought Zhu Hongwu and the great celestial will back together. Zhu Yi lightly tapped on the Permitha golden bridge and said, "Liang Pan, Emperor Zhou, what are you and Zhu Hongwu planning? Is it the celestial mountain in the Yingxi? It seems like you still haven't given up." Even if everyone has their own plans and abilities, there are some bottom lines that everyone has to keep. Your great Zhou dynasty has been unbridled in the war between the two worlds. Do you really think that no one can deal with you? I crippled Zhu Hongwu's martial arts because I want to send him to my mother's grave to admit his mistakes. But before that, I also want to deal with the problem of your great Zhou dynasty. After he finished speaking, Zhu Yi had already set up the Permitha Golden Bridge and swept Yu Hongyan and Shalua Wonder Tree. He broke through the space that was about to close up and chased after Tianjing City. Meanwhile, the Grand Imperial Palace suddenly shook. Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu were extremely furious. They could both feel that Zhu Hongwu's essence, qi, and magic power were also spurting out of his body along with his essence blood. At this moment, his powerful strength was uncontrollably dissipating and disintegrating. Chapter 1282. At this moment, in the sky above Tianjing City, an uncountable number of purplish gold light dragons danced non-stop, gathering towards Tianjing City from all directions. The powerful dragon vein qi at this moment caused the entire Tianjing City to be covered in a layer of gold. Under the activation of the city defense formation, the qi shot into the sky. Above Tianjing City was a huge immortal palace. At this moment, in the immortal palace, in addition to the millions of officials and citizens who were constantly kowtowing, there were also tens of thousands of armored cultivators. They formed a formation and stood on the drill ground in front of the immortal palace. The area was as vast as the starry sky. Even with tens of thousands of people gathered there, it did not feel crowded at all. Among these tens of thousands of people, the weakest were only at the foundation establishment stage. There were even a few at the qi refinement stage. The strongest were only at the yuanying stage. Such a large number of low-level cultivators might not be of much use against a primordial spirit cultivator. Quantitative change could cause qualitative change. However, if the difference in quality between the two sides was too great, then quantity could not make up for it. But at this moment, these cultivators gathered together. Under the linkage of magic power, their power changed drastically. The formation in front of them was the Great Zhou Dynasty's Divine Martial Immortal Execution Formation. It was derived from the formation set up by the Grand Emperor in the ancient times. It was mysterious and domineering. These tens of thousands of cultivators were naturally the Xinwu army that the Great Zhou Dynasty had recruited and trained over the years. Facing the incoming enemy, most of the Xinwu army cultivators were actually anxious. After all, this was Xianmen Tianzong, the undisputed number one power in the Divine Land. But now that they were connected by the formation, they couldn't back down. This formation didn't require the participants to cultivate the same Dao arts or work together. It was enough as long as they provided magic power. Under the operation of the formation, this magic power would change qualitatively. When it was poured into the general's power would increase by leaps and bounds. At this moment, the power of the Divine Martial Immortal Execution Formation wasn't on one person but on the Grand Emperor Palace. As the Grand Emperor Palace shook, rays of purple gold light flowed and strengthened the Divine Martial Immortal Execution Formation. The power of both sides complemented each other. The formation and the treasure grew together and the power kept rising. The Grand Emperor Palace finally recovered and returned to its peak state. It was already powerful and now, with the support of the Divine Martial Immortal Execution Formation, it became even more powerful. At the same time, the power of the Grand Imperial Palace was connected to the energy of the Dragon Vein in Tianjing City, as if they were one. Outside the Supreme Imperial Palace and Tianjing City, a huge light curtain covered the sky. It was the Yin and Yang Life and Death Formation. Under the command of Ding of Shenzhou, the Yin and Yang Life and Death Formation kept rotating while suppressing the Supreme Imperial Palace. Meanwhile, the Supreme Imperial Palace and Tianjing City did not let the infinite power of two extremes break through their defense line. Shi Tianhao manifested the city in the sky and combined his power with the Yin and Yang Life and Death Formation to suppress the Imperial Dowager Palace and Tianjing City. However, with the support of the Dragon Vein Qi and the Divine Martial Immortal Exterminating Formation, their defense was impregnable. Under the obstruction of Shi Tianhao and the others, it was impossible for Liang Pan and the Grand Imperial Palace to leave Tianjing City. However, if they focused on defending, Shi Tianhao and Li Yuanfang would not be able to break through. Suddenly, the Grand Imperial Palace activated the receiving ritual. The analutual golden body burned and rescued Zhu Hongwu and the Great Wheel of Heavens. However, right after that, Zhu Yi activated the Permitha Golden Bridge and rushed over with Yu Hongyan and Shalu a wondrous tree. In the core hall of the Supreme Imperial Palace, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou looked at Zhu Hongwu, who was covered in blood and severely injured. His face was filled with shock and anger. Zhu Hongwu coughed continuously and all he coughed out was blood. Your Majesty, that unfilial son and Xianmen Tianzong may have already seen through our plan. I suspect that they may be trying to use us to find the Fangzhang Immortal Mountain. Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou revealed a determined look. This is the greatest catastrophe in the history of the great Zhou dynasty. Being trapped in Tianjing City, the hearts of the people inside are unstable, and there is no help from the outside. There won't be any chance for things to turn around. Only by taking a risk and hiding in Yinghai and relying on the Immortal Mountain to hide can we avoid the eyes and ears of the Master of the Celestial Sect. The Master of the Celestial Sect is powerful and he even controls Yingzhou Immortal Mountain in Yinghai. It's much more convenient for him to be in Yinghai than the others. However, it won't be easy for him to stop us. As long as we obtain the Fangzhang Immortal Mountain, there is a high chance that we can last until the next time Yinghai reopens and the three mountains appear. With such a long time, as long as we are careful, we can slowly deal with Xianmen Tianzong, preserve our vitality, and plan for the future. Liang Pan, who was wearing a dragon robe and a flat crown, stood up and said decisively, Hongwu, you just need to meditate and cultivate. As Liang Pan stood up, his body revealed an unusual feeling, as if he had made some kind of decision. In the next moment, under the control of Liang Pan's thoughts, the Grand Imperial Palace and Tianjing City below shook violently at the same time. The mountains shook and the earth shook, as if it was the end of the world. The purple gold light dragons formed by the chi of the dragon vein roared in unison at this moment. The graceful and dignified aura gradually disappeared, replaced by an intense restlessness and violence. It was as if they were angered, but also as if they were determined to fight to the death in a desperate situation. At this moment, the huge Tianjing City, the capital of the great Zhou dynasty that had been managed for many years, was actually gradually collapsing in the light that filled the sky. The protective formation of Tianjing City suddenly reversed and collapsed together with Tianjing City. At the same time, it gathered all its power in an instant and exploded together, even exceeding its previous limits. The light dragons formed by the chi of the dragon vein that was supporting Tianjing City also broke apart one by one. It was as if a doomsday dragon was soaring. Countless essence and vitality were destroyed together, and the void continuously turned into nothingness. Such a ruthless and decisive action caused even Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao's eyes to twitch slightly. Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou was actually going to detonate the capital of the great Zhou dynasty, Tianjing City. This powerful power, which was like the last radiance of a setting sun, was even more terrifying and powerful than the power of Analuchuo's golden body self-ignition. Under the support of this terrifying power, the power of the Grand Imperial Palace surged again, and it shone brightly. In the light, a huge mass of chaotic air could be vaguely seen. It was extremely unstable, constantly shaking and distorting. In the next moment, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the center of the mass of chaotic air. When this crack appeared, the majestic power seemed to tear the vast thousand domains into two. Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others could not help but have the illusion that the divine land of the vast thousand domains was shaking. The terrifying power that could tear the heavens and the earth was extremely shocking. It forcibly resisted the pressure of the yin and yang life and death formation and sky city. The moment the golden Permitha bridge arrived, it forcibly tore a crack in the void domain. This was the display of the strongest power of the Grand Imperial Palace, the ultimate emperor splitting the heavens technique. In the Grand Imperial Palace, Liang Pan set up a new ritual. Under the operation of this ritual, the crack in the sky above the Grand Imperial Palace became bigger and bigger. At the same time, light and shadow kept flashing inside, and white smoke came out from it. It was the scene in Yingxi. The power of Tianjing City's destruction formed a thick pillar of light that connected to the crack in the sky. Inside this thick pillar of light that covered a radius of 10,000 miles, the Grand Imperial Palace seemed to be moving slowly, but it was actually moving very fast. It moved forward through a passage and rushed into the crack in the sky. Zhu Yi stepped on the golden Paramitha bridge and said, "Little junior brother, I'll leave this place to you. Let's meet in Yingxi." While guarding, the golden Paramitha bridge turned into a long rainbow and followed the Grand Imperial Palace into the crack. The yin and yang life and death formation circled in the void, then turned into a small light spot and landed on the golden Paramitha bridge. Shi Tianhao nodded and said, "It's a pity to destroy such a majestic city." As he spoke, the city in the sky above his head gradually turned into a piece of clear light. In the green light, an illusory and transparent city formed completely by light appeared and suppressed Tianjing City. The commotion in Tianjing City immediately calmed down, and the dragon qi that gathered here also gradually disappeared. However, a large amount of chaotic essence qi and primordial qi was also continuously absorbed by the illusory city as it regained its balance and calmness. In the distance, the fourth prince of the great Zhou dynasty, Liang Qian, did not know whether to laugh or cry as he watched this scene. No matter what, Heavenly Emperor Huang would not return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain. Liang Qian shook his head slightly and pulled himself together. He let out a long breath of turbid air, but he still felt that he could not calm down. When the war between the two worlds had just ended, he had left Tianjing City with the help of Zhu Yi, leaving Liang Pan and Zhu Honggu, who were not fully prepared at that time, helpless. From today onwards, he would take over Tianjing City, take over the Great Zhou dynasty, and become the new emperor of Great Zhou. Meanwhile, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou would be declared deposed, and this would be announced to the entire divine land. Perhaps people would think that he did not live up to his name, or that he was Xianmen Tianzong's puppet, or that his cultivation was too low, or that he could not lead the Great Zhou dynasty to prosperity. Even if Liang Pan and Zhu Honggu suddenly attacked, he might not be able to resist. But thinking of this, Liang Qian's mood instead began to calm down. Beside Liang Qian stood a black-clothed youth. His eyes were slightly closed, and a sharp light flashed in his gaze. However, most of the time, it was deep and calm. It was Chu Yang, who had reached the primordial soul realm. He smiled slightly. "Your Highness, no, Your Majesty, long time no see. You are far more elegant than before." Liang Qian turned to look at him and laughed. "Far more elegant than before is Mr. Chu. I am far inferior. In the following days, I will need Mr. Chu to help me again. How would I dare not obey? Although I am not strong enough, I will definitely do my best." Chu Yang's current strength was not something that ordinary primordial soul embodiment realm cultivators could match. However, compared to a force like the Great Zhou dynasty, he was undoubtedly still somewhat unable to control the situation. But his appearance here imperceptibly contained a deep meaning. It was a manifestation of Xianmen Tianzong's attitude. Both Liang Qian and Chu Yang were well aware of this. The two looked at each other and smiled. The previous feeling of estrangement gradually faded. Liang Qian looked towards Tianjing City. "The situation has been decided." Although the final outcome of Zhu Honggu and Liang Pan's escape was still unknown, the entire human cultivation world of the vast land of the Divine Continent was clear that as long as the celestial sect of Xianmen remained strong, as long as the overall structure of the vast land of the Divine Continent did not change, Liang Pan and his minister were destined to be unable to enter Tianjing City and rule over nearly half of the land of the Divine Continent. And what made people gasp in admiration was that from beginning to end, the master of the Taoist Xianmen, Lin Feng, had always sat on Yujing Mountain and never made a move. In the Divine Land, he was a supreme deterrent. Just a few of his personal disciples were enough to change the Great Zhou dynasty, which could be said to be the third force in the Divine Land after the Taoist Xianmen and Taishu. Chapter 1283. The result of the battle in Snow Wind County was spread across the world. Zhu Yi's corpse disintegrated and defeated the Zhou imperial tutor Xuanji Marquis Zhu Hongguo. One of the 10 great disciples of Buddha, Anaruchuo, appeared but was sacrificed by the Zhou imperial dynasty to bring Zhu Hongguo and the Great Heaven Will back to Tianjing City. Then Zhou Emperor Liang Pan used his Fa Li to gather everyone in Tianjing City and caused Tianjing City to self-destruct, breaking out of the encirclement and disappearing. Xianmen Tianzong's Zi Zhu Yi, Huang Heavenly Emperor Shi Tianhao and He Luo God Monarch Li Yuanfang chased after them, but they also disappeared. There was news that one chased and one escaped into the Ying Ocean of the Heaven Origin 7 Seas. After that, the fourth son of Zhou Emperor Liang Pan, Liang Qian, entered Tianjing City and ascended to the throne as the new Zhou Emperor. Liang Pan, who had gone missing, became the retired emperor. He rewarded the officials and rebuilt the Tianjing City Great Array. He also allowed the citizens of Zhou who had migrated to other places to enter Tianjing City. After the formation was re-established, the purplish gold dragon vein qi quickly gathered above the great Zhou dynasty and gathered towards Tianjing City. Liang Gan was not worried that Liang Pan would use the Grand Imperial Palace to steal the dragon vein energy. Although Liang Gan would lose without a doubt, Liang Pan's whereabouts would be exposed, so Liang Gan did not have any worries. To Liang Qian, the most important problem at hand was the negotiation with the Great Qin Empire apart from the ascension of the throne. Without the Grand Imperial Palace and without the Immortal Dragon City, unless the Great Qin dynasty completely swallowed the Great Zhou dynasty's territory, they would not be able to obtain the Great Zhou dynasty's dragon vein energy. Although they currently had the strength to do so, Chu Yang entering Tianjing City had already expressed the Xian Gate Heaven Sex attitude. Chu Yang was a disciple of Heavens Beyond Mountain and not a member of Xianmen Tianzong. However, Heavens Beyond Mountain had already become Xianmen Tianzong's vassal, almost a branch. Because of Heavens Beyond Mountain's good performance in the Xian exterminating war, they were treated well by Xianmen Tianzong. Putting aside the protection and preferential treatment of resources, outside of the opening ceremony, Xianmen Tianzong would send people to inspect the outstanding disciples of Beyond Heaven Mountain every once in a while. If they were outstanding enough, the descendants of Beyond Sky Mountain would have the opportunity to study under Xianmen Tianzong. Although they might not be able to inherit the Great Tao, just this alone was enough to make countless cultivation forces in the Divine Land envious, and it also established the status of Beyond Sky Mountain as a loyal follower of Xianmen Tianzong. Chu Yang entering Tianjing City and not Xianmen Tianzong's disciple entering Tianjing City showed that Xianmen Tianzong had no intention of interfering with the internal affairs of the Great Zhou dynasty, allowing the chaotic Great Zhou dynasty to quickly stabilize. It also showed their support for the new Great Zhou Emperor, Liang Qian. Because of this, the Great Zhou dynasty was no longer in danger of being destroyed. However, how they would satisfy Shi Zongtang and the others, how they would negotiate, how they would wrangle, and how they would preserve the vitality of the Great Zhou dynasty would depend on Liang Qian and the new Great Zhou dynasty's abilities. Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others would not participate. Even Chu Yang, who had once been Liang Qian's advisor and helped Liang Qian strategize, entered Tianjing City this time with only his cultivation and sword. He did not bring his mouth. Even if he assisted Liang Qian in the future to increase Beyond Sky Mountain's influence in the Great Zhou dynasty, that would have to wait until the current situation had completely calmed down. Today was different from the past. This was decided by his current position. First, there was the relationship between Xianmen Tianzong and Beyond Sky Mountain, and then there was the relationship between Beyond Sky Mountain and the other forces. Chu Yang could easily weigh the importance of these matters. The new Great Zhou Emperor, Liang Qian, was undoubtedly aware of this, so he did not mind Chu Yang being a mute for the time being. To him, as long as Chu Yang entered Tianjing City and expressed the attitude of Xianmen Tianzong behind him, it was enough. The Great Zhou dynasty's king of Yuyun, Liang Jingcheng, and the Mahayana grade magic treasure, Liang Jingcheng, who had been suppressed by Yu Hongyan and the wondrous Shaluo tree in Snowy Wind, had a chance to escape while the wondrous Shaluo tree and Yu Hongyan were protecting Zhu Yi. However, they returned to Tianjing City afterwards. Liang Jingqing expressed his allegiance to Liang Qian, whose cultivation was lower than his, and became Liang Qian's subordinate. The Great Zhou dynasty's frontier ship was also left with the Great Zhou dynasty's imperial family, preserving some vitality for the Great Zhou dynasty. Xianmen Tianzong did not pay much attention to the negotiation between the Great Zhou and the Great Qin dynasty, how the Great Zhou dynasty would deal with the other forces, and how much benefits they would have to give up. Currently, there was only one request from the Divine Land to the Great Zhou dynasty, which was to re-establish a nation in snowy wind. Lin Feng sat on the peak of the mysterious sky treasure tree on Yujing Mountain. He looked calmly towards the east and chuckled in his heart. He did not have to do anything, and his disciples would do the work for him. Creating an unparalleled force to flatten the world was one of the things he had always looked forward to. Although there was still a long way to go before he could truly flatten the world, Lin Feng was rather satisfied with the current situation. As for Zhu Hongwu and Liang Pan, who had escaped to Yinghai, Lin Feng could only say that they would not run even if they wanted to. Going to the void battlefield was much more reliable than going to Yinghai. Even with Lin Feng's current level of cultivation and strength, wanting to find people in the sea of empty space is not something that he can do as he pleases. Of course, if Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu wanted to run into the void battlefield, Lin Feng, Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others would naturally plan in advance to block their way. It would be extremely difficult to find people in the void sea, but with proper planning and strong strength, it was still possible to prevent them from entering the void sea. However, after knowing that Zhu Hongwu had revealed the Taishu mystic light, Lin Feng knew that the possibility of Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu escaping into the void sea was close to zero. There was no free lunch in the world. Seeing the Taishu mystic light, Lin Feng knew that the Taishu temple was likely to be secretly supporting the Great Zhou dynasty. However, at this stage, the possibility of them directly taking action was zero. If Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu directly entered the void sea, they would be following the path of the king of the underworld. From then on, they would completely hide and wait for the right time. However, this might not be something that the Taishu temple would be happy to see. Indeed, if they hid in the void battlefield, not only would it be difficult for Lin Feng to find them, but it would also be difficult for the Taishu temple to find them and settle the score with them. However, if they offended Xianmen Tianzong and Taishu Temple at the same time, then Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu would really become like the king of the underworld. Almost everyone would want to beat them up. If they hid like this, it would be more difficult than ascending to the heavens if they wanted to come out. Moreover, with Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu's temperament, it would probably be difficult for them to accept this. Sometimes, it was not an empty saying that one's personality determined one's fate. If there really was no other way, then so be it. However, it was very likely that Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu had left behind some means to help them search for the Fangzhang deity mountain again because they had once possessed it. Yinghai had been continuously alarmed by the power of the Dead Sea and the might of the heaven-crushing sword. Some changes that had never happened before were happening. Lin Feng had also sensed this. Seeing that Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu were fleeing towards Yinghai, how could he not know what they were thinking? At this moment, in the Yinghai, where the white clouds and mist shrouded, there was a sudden flash of light at an unknown distance. Two majestic immortal mountains appeared at the same time. One of them had a circumference of 2,000 kilometers. The immortal mountain was surrounded by a huge formation. The space was distorted, forming huge jade plates that were pieced together, covering the immortal mountain. However, one could still vaguely see the spiritual spring waterfall on the immortal mountain from the outside. It was one of the three mountains of Yinghai, Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. A tall figure stood on the peak of the immortal mountain. His facial features were exactly the same as Lin Feng's. His tall figure seemed to contain an extremely powerful force. He was Lin Feng's god of war clone. The other immortal mountain had a circumference of 5,000 kilometers. It was surrounded by a vast sea of space. A palace stood silently on the immortal mountain. 9 streams of clear qi kept surging out of the mountain, enveloped by specks of light. It was Penglai Immortal Mountain, which was one of the 3 mountains of Yinghai along with Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. Everyone knew that Yingzhou Immortal Mountain eventually fell into the control of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong during the Battle of Yinghai. Meanwhile, the Great Zhou Empire lost Fangzhang Deity Mountain after obtaining it. Lin Feng drove Penglai Immortal Mountain to collide with it, and both sides lost control of it. Therefore, in the eyes of the public, Fangzhang and Penglai Immortal Mountain were both ownerless. Only Lin Feng controlled Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. Lin Feng and his disciples were the only ones who knew about the secret of Penglai Immortal Mountain. Even many of the younger disciples and guest protectors in the sect did not know about the situation. In the palace of Penglai Immortal Mountain, a 90 feet tall giant sat cross-legged. It was the 9 qi clone that Lin Feng had refined from the 9 streams of clear qi of Penglai Immortal Mountain. The 9 qi clone's expression was calm. Suddenly, his gaze flickered. Looks like there really is a way to find Fangzhang Deity Mountain. He smiled. Liang Pan, Zhu Honggu, your thoughts can't be wrong. However, the problem is that you have too little information on hand. At the peak of Jade Capital Mountain, Lin Feng's main body also smiled and shook his head. Then, he entered the Dark Heaven Time Light Grotto Heaven. Sitting in the Dark Heaven Time Light Grotto Heaven, Lin Feng gently tapped the void with his finger. A black and white Tai Chi diagram appeared in front of him. In the Tai Chi diagram, a figure sat upright. His purple clothes were scattered. It was Lin Feng's appearance. Then, black and white Tai Chi diagrams appeared one after another. In the center of each Tai Chi diagram sat an illusory figure of Lin Feng. The many Tai Chi diagrams circled around Lin Feng silently. Lin Feng closed his eyes and meditated. As time passed, the Tai Chi diagrams finally disappeared. Only a Tai Chi diagram gradually formed above Lin Feng's head. It was simple. Black and white were distinct and mutually reinforcing. It seemed to be deducing the infinite mysteries of the universe. Slowly, Lin Feng opened his eyes and looked up at the Tai Chi diagram. He was silent for a long time. A tall figure covered in silver-white scales and 2 horns suddenly appeared in front of him. It was the Brontosaurus's clone in human form. The Brontosaurus clone let out a long roar and revealed its true form. It turned into a huge silver-white Brontosaurus. It stood opposite Lin Feng's main body in silence. In the process of Lin Feng's training, time passed bit by bit. The outside world was still changing. However, outside the Yingxi, the land of the Great Zhou dynasty was almost settled. The one related to Xianmen Tianzong was the Snowgale Restoration Nation. However, back then, Snowgale Kingdom had been massacred on a large scale. Its vitality was greatly damaged. Even if it were to rebuild the kingdom, it would be a long process. It could not be rushed. Chapter 1284. Not long ago, the Great Zhou dynasty's Snowgale County, at this moment, at the foot of Mist Mountain, the capital of Snowgale Country, a new city was gradually being built. On the side of Mist Mountain, a Taoist field was being built at the same time. The person who did it was a woman in a purple robe, and beside her was a young man with a medium build, who was peacefully talking to the people next to him. The people who talked to them were not companions, but were divided into 3 camps, the Great Zhou dynasty, the Great Qin dynasty, and the Northern Militant Imperial Court. The leader of the Great Zhou dynasty was a Yuanying ancestor, who was very low-key and let Dao Master Chang'e of the Great Qin dynasty take the lead. The person from the Northern Militant Imperial Court who came here was also a late Yuanying warrior. In terms of cultivation, they were all higher than the young man in front of them and the woman who was trying to build the new city, but no one looked down on these 2 juniors who were less than a fraction of their age. Especially the young man with a medium build, except for Dao Master Chang'e, the other 2 late Yuanying ancestors didn't even have the confidence to fight against this man. Dao Master Chang'e looked at him with eyes full of praise. So, Immortal Wu's mansion will be built in Mist Mountain? The young man was naturally the first disciple of Immortal Wu Yuheng Yan, Xianmen Tianzong, the first disciple of the 2nd-generation successor disciple of Snow Gale Valley, Xiao Huan. He was neither servile nor overbearing, and his tone was calm and respectful. Yes, this is the idea that Master had a long time ago. Dao Master Chang'e and the leaders of the Great Zhou dynasty and the northern militant imperial court nodded slightly. In fact, this was also expected. The origin of Lin Feng's fourth disciple, Yu Hongyan, was no longer a secret. As an orphan of Snow Gale country, now that the country was being rebuilt, it was natural to take care of him. Dao Master Chang Lu and the others had a rough understanding of Zhao Huan, who was also from the Snow Gale kingdom, just like Yu Hongyan. For them, the significance of Snow Gale country was far from ordinary. Although Mist Mountain couldn't be considered as a holy land for cultivation and could even be considered as an extremely ordinary place, it wasn't surprising that Yu Hongyan chose to build a side residence here. But because of this, Dao Master Chang Lu and the others had to pay attention. There was no need to mention the Great Zhou dynasty. Snow Gale country bordered their territory. Although the relationship between the Great Zhou dynasty and Xianmen Tianzong had greatly eased after Liang Qian ascended to the throne, the hatred between Snow Gale and the Great Zhou dynasty could not be eliminated in a short period of time. With Xianmen Tianzong standing behind him, the rise of Snow Gale country was inevitable. Even if it was hard to compare with the Great Zhou, the Great Qin, and the northern militant in the short term, but its future prospects were something that the Great Zhou dynasty could not ignore. Following the fall of Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo, the upper echelons might be able to maintain their rationality, but the emotions of the lower echelons might not be appeased in a short period of time. Once there was any conflict, even if Yu Hongyan and Zhao Huan were reasonable, it would not be a good thing for the Great Zhou dynasty, which was treading on thin ice. Although the Great Qin dynasty and the northern militant imperial court had always been on good terms with Xianmen Tianzong, there were many things that needed to be considered in advance in the face of Snow Gale country, which also bordered them, in case they were caught unprepared. Zhao Huan could see the thoughts of Dao Master Chang Lu and the others, but he did not point it out. He just continued to say, after Master returns from Yingxi, she will cultivate in seclusion. When she is not here, I will take care of this place. Please take care of me. Dao Master Chang Lu and the others repeatedly said that they would not dare to do so, but they felt a little relieved. The meaning of Zhao Huan's words was tantamount to saying that whether it was Yu Hongyan or Xianmen Tianzong behind him, they had no intention of interfering in the internal affairs of Snow Gale country, nor did they intend to help Snow Gale country expand. The late-stage Yuanying warrior of the northern militant imperial court said, Supreme Tianjing and Supreme Tianing are too serious. Snow Gale country is a country of brothers of the northern militant imperial court. If there is anything, the northern militant imperial court will lend a helping hand. Zhao Huan smiled and nodded, I thank you in advance. The purple-robed woman next to him was his junior sister, another outstanding second-generation successor disciple of Snow Gale Valley, Ku Jing. In the late stage of the war between the two realms, after many hardships, she felt that she had broken through the bottleneck and immediately returned to the mountain to cultivate in seclusion. Finally, not long ago, she passed the Void Thunder Tribulation and formed the Yuanying realm, achieving the Yuanying realm. Ku Jing also thanked the warrior of the northern militant imperial court. Her hands did not stop moving the mountain stones. Under the condition of maintaining the original style of Mist Mountain as much as possible, she built a cave residence. In the future, this would be the second residence of her master, Martial Immortal Yu Hongyan. However, at this moment, Ku Jing was only in the preliminary stage of construction. The real arrangement would have to wait for Yu Hongyan himself to come back from Yinghai to personally deal with it. At that time, he would most likely ask Li Yuanfang to come over and help arrange the formation. Zhao Huan was talking with Dao Master Chang'e and the others. Behind him stood a few people, all of whom were disciples of Snow Gale Valley. There were second-generation successor disciples and third-generation successor disciples. One of them was a tall young man with a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. He looked valiant and had a bit of a rough temperament, but his eyes were firm and calm. His expression did not change. He secretly transmitted his voice to a fellow disciple next to him, Junior Brother Qin, why do you keep staring at a cultivator of the golden elixir period in the Great Qin dynasty? Although Zhao Huan and Ke Jing were still cultivators of the Yuanying period, in front of them, people with higher cultivation, such as Dao Master Chang'e, would not intercept and eavesdrop even if they could feel that there were people privately communicating with each other among the cultivators of Xianmen Tianzong. The person who was asked was slightly stunned. After a short silence, he calmly replied, "Brother Gua, I don't like that person." The square-faced youth asked, "Why?" "I met him before. I didn't want to spy on other people's conversation, but I accidentally heard him privately talking with others. He slandered our Snowgale Valley and Master." The other person replied, "He thought I couldn't hear it, but he didn't know that I could still hear it clearly without deliberately intercepting it." The square-faced youth called Brother Gua turned to look at him. "Oh, what did he say?" The disciple of Snowgale Valley frowned. "He said that our Snowgale Valley is the weakest of the 8 branches of our sect. He thinks that Master is the most inconspicuous person among the second chief of the 8 branches, and that Uncle Ku is also very mediocre." The square-faced youth's expression did not change. Slowly, he said, "If he just expressed his own opinion in private, then don't pay attention to it." The disciple of Snowgale Valley was slightly stunned. "Brother Gua," the square-faced youth replied, "work hard to improve yourself. Facts speak louder than words. We will always have a chance to clear our name, and the rumors will be dispelled. If the other party still wants to pester us, it will only show that he has eyes but cannot see." His fellow disciple pursed his lips in dissatisfaction. Then, Brother Gua changed the topic and said, "If the other party provokes us in front of our faces, or deliberately spreads rumors to ruin our sect's reputation, or tries to stir up trouble, then we won't let him off easily. We'll let him experience for himself whether our Snowy Wind Valley is really weak or not. But before that, calm your mind and be broad-minded. Don't be affected by a few casual words from outsiders." Brother Gua turned to look at him and smiled slightly. "What he thinks doesn't mean that it is true. You and I both know that it is absurd. Just take it as a joke. Why get angry because of it?" At this moment, Zhao Huan, who was in front of them, said lightly without turning his head, "Zhong Huang is right. Pengyan, you still need to be tempered." The square-faced youth surnamed Gua and the disciple of Snowgale Valley were awestruck. Zhao Huan also had no intention of intercepting his disciple's voice, but at this moment, in front of Dao Master Chang'e and the others, he at least had to ensure that the content of the conversation would not go wrong. If the content was not hindered, he did not care at all, and there was not the slightest trace left on the platform, just like a breeze blowing. But if there were some sensitive words, he had to pay attention. But then, he smiled slightly. "However, his evaluation of me is actually not wrong. Whether it is talent or actual combat, I am inferior to Junior Brother Tang, Junior Brother Han, and Junior Brother Zhou. This is a fact." The disciple surnamed Qin lowered his head, but the square-faced youth's eyes were firm and he opened his mouth. "Master," Zhao Huan interrupted him and said with a smile, "It's nothing. Junior Brother Tang, Junior Brother Han, Junior Brother Zhou, Junior Brother Yang, and Junior Brother Huang, who are of the same generation as me, are all stronger than me. This is no secret in our sect. Compared to them, my talent is indeed not so outstanding. The only thing I can show off is that I am diligent in cultivation. But in terms of diligence, others may not be worse than me, so I still have no outstanding aspects. It was not afraid that the other person was more talented than you, but afraid that the person who was more talented than you was also more diligent than you." Zhao Huan did not mind exposing his shortcomings in front of his disciple. The square-faced youth and the other youth did not seem surprised, but their eyes were a little dignified. "I am very clear about my position. I am not afraid of being inferior to my fellow disciples, but once I leave the celestial gate, I have to be worthy of the patriarch, master, and uncles." Zhao Huan said faintly, "I'm not an unpolished jade. I'm just a stone, an ordinary, numerous, and ordinary stone. There's no jade in my stomach. I'll work hard to polish myself and make myself harder, to become a cornerstone of the sect. I will do my best not to tarnish the name of the sect. If I can contribute to the development of the sect, this life is enough." He did not look back and was even talking with Tao Master Changlo, but the sound transmission did not stop. At least, I have cultivated you. I have not led you astray, I have not wasted you, and I have not let down the elders' trust. This makes me very proud. Even if I am mediocre, you can surpass your ancestors. The sect has a successor, and this is enough. Behind him, the square-faced youth and the other youth slightly bowed their heads. Disciple will remember Master's teachings. The square-faced youth surnamed Gua's chest was filled with heroic spirit, and his eyes became more and more firm. Ke Jing glanced at him, the corners of her mouth slightly raised in a smile. This child entered the sect late. During the war between the two realms, he was in seclusion to form his core, so he did not participate in the war between the two realms. Although he had some fame when he went out, he could not compare to Meng Honglu, Lian Huazhao, Yi Xinhui, Chen Fanga, and Shi Yang who shone in the war between the two realms. But he was unanimously optimistic about Xianmen Tianzong. Guo Zonghuang, the sect's Taoist name Yuan Zhen, the third-generation successor disciple of Snow Wind Valley. Among the third-generation successor disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, he had the fastest cultivation speed. First in actual combat within the same realm. Chapter 1285. Zhao Huan had always been at ease with Guo Zonghuang and was very optimistic about his future. After giving a few words of advice to his disciples, he returned to his senses and continued to talk with Tao Master Changle and the others. At the same time, his eyes swept across the scenery of Snowgale country in front of him from time to time. He had never really seen these scenes before, but when he was growing up, from the time he could remember, whether it was his parents or the adults around him, they often described the scenery and customs of Snowgale country. They described the scenery of the country that had been completely destroyed by the swords and spears of the great Zhou dynasty. Under the influence of hearing and seeing, although it felt a little unreal, all of this was still firmly engraved in Zhao Huan's heart, and he never forgot. Later, when Snowgale was destroyed by Zhang Lai and Zhao Huan's parents were killed, the illusory scene of Snowgale country in his memory became more and more real and clear. Over the years, Zhao Huan had temporarily set foot on the homeland of Snowgale country, but at that time, it was still Snowgale county of the great Zhou dynasty. It had never been like now, where he really felt like he had returned home. In particular, moving his parents' cenotaph to the foot of Mist Mountain made Zhao Huan's heart feel incomparably clear and mysterious. Zhao Huan looked at the late Yuanying cultivator who led the team and said, "These days, there have been some sporadic conflicts between the two sides. I hope we can properly solve them together." The Yuanying ancestor nodded, "No problem." In addition to communicating with Zhao Huan of Xianmen Tianzong, he came to Snowgale County for another mission. He was ordered by the new emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty, Liang Qian, to come here to coordinate and deal with the Great Zhou cultivators who were still in conflict with the middle and lower-level cultivators of Snowgale country and even Xianmen Tianzong. The forces of the Great Zhou dynasty withdrew and Snowgale country was rebuilt. In a short period of time, there were always some loose ends to deal with. After all, the relationship between the two sides was extremely bad and there were many resentments. At present, there was a considerable territory between the Great Zhou dynasty and Snowgale country. Liang Qian had just ascended the throne and subdued King of Yuyun Liang Jingsheng and the Mahayana magic treasure, Liang Pan, and Zhu Honggu did not return to the divine continent, so his throne was extremely stable. But to bring the entire Great Zhou under his control, it would take time for the local forces that had become restless because of the previous changes to return to his side. These local forces of the Great Zhou dynasty were inextricably linked with each other. Some of them secretly communicated with each other and took in some of the Great Zhou dynasty cultivators who were evacuated from the Snowgale country. The reconstruction of Snowgale had also damaged the interests of some people. They might not dare to openly go against the Snowgale nation, which had the backing of the celestial sect of Profound Gate, but it was inevitable that they would secretly connive and support some rogue cultivators. At this moment, on the land of Snowgale country, as well as at the border with the Great Zhou dynasty, there was a rare occurrence of banditry. Now it seems like the wheel of fortune has turned. In the past, the organizations like the Society of the Strong Gale that Yu Hongyan and Zhao Huan were in were roaming the borders of the Zhou dynasty, resisting and rebelling, and now it's the turn of a portion of the Zhou dynasty cultivators. The Yu Hongyans and Zhao Huan's Society of the Strong Gale and other organizations had come for this purpose. Now it was the turn of some great Zhou dynasty cultivators. Liang Qian naturally would not sit back and do nothing. In fact, this was exactly what he wanted. The other party's short-sighted behavior gave him a starting point to reorganize the local forces. The great Qin dynasty's Dao master Chang Lu and the northern militant imperial court's Yuanying late-phase cultivators had no reaction to this. However, no matter if it was Zhao Huan or the cultivators of the great Zhou dynasty, they all knew that the great Qin and the northern militant would support and rope in the local powers of the great Zhou dynasty under the new emperor of Zhou, Liang Gan's rule. This was already the norm for the great Zhou dynasty, the great Qin dynasty and the northern militant imperial court. Especially between the great Zhou dynasty and the great Qin dynasty, it was even more common. Although both sides were currently leaning towards Xianmen Tianzong in terms of policies and routes, it did not mean that the two sides were in harmony with each other. Putting aside the fact that the competition between the two sides had always existed, even their past grudges could not be completely forgotten with the fall of Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo. Even though Liang Qian had just ascended to the throne and had to make some concessions to Great Qin in order to clean up Liang Pan's mess, this did not mean that he was willing to lower his head to Great Qin and hand over Great Zhou and his throne. After the war between the two worlds came to an end, the two sides would still continue to fight. This was the inevitable result of the two great cultivation and secular dynasties existing side by side in the same era. However, the intensity of the battle would still remain at the stage of surging undercurrents. Because at this stage, both the Great Zhou and the Great Qin had to face a problem. That was, the northern militant imperial court that could not challenge their position in the past was now faintly on the verge of becoming a three-legged tripod with them. In the war between the two worlds, the Great Qin dynasty had suffered heavy losses. It could no longer be described as a serious injury to its vitality. It had almost been removed from the divine land. And after this battle, as Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo fled with the Grand Imperial Palace and the Great Wheel of Heaven, the power of the Great Zhou dynasty had become extremely weak. As for the northern militant imperial court, whether it was the area controlled by the Heavenly Pools sect at the beginning, the harvest from the exterminating profound war, or the harvest from the war between the two worlds, it had caused its power to rise steadily. It had become a powerful force that dominated the northern border and looked down on the hinterland of the divine continent. As for the northern militant imperial court, the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Zhou dynasty had to pay far more attention to the northern militant imperial court than the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Zhou dynasty. Strictly speaking, the relationship between the northern militant imperial court and Xianmen Tianzong was even closer than that between the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Zhou dynasty. In all the previous details, Xianmen Tianzong had already made his attitude clear. He would not interfere with the internal affairs and development of the Great Zhou dynasty, the Great Qin dynasty and the northern militant imperial court. This made them feel restless, but they also had to think more. Moreover, there was news that the descendants of the ancient emperor, who had reappeared after the war between the two worlds, were finally going to return to the divine land. Based on the current situation, the power of the ancient emperor far surpassed that of the Great Qin dynasty, the Great Zhou dynasty and the northern militant imperial court. If they obtained the support of Xianmen Tianzong and returned to the divine continent, it would undoubtedly be bad news for the Great Qin dynasty, the Great Zhou dynasty and the northern militant imperial court. This also caused the situation in the divine land to gradually stabilize. Of course, this did not prevent the three families from secretly infiltrating each other and opposing each other. Zhao Huan was talking with the Great Zhou dynasty cultivator when he suddenly frowned. The Great Zhou dynasty's late-stage Yuanying old ancestors' expression also changed slightly. Both of them received a voice transmission at the same time. There was news that the Great Zhou dynasty cultivators were causing trouble. Moreover, the cultivation of the troublemakers this time was not low. There were actually Yuanying cultivators involved. The situation was very bad. The great Zhou dynasty's late-stage Yuanying old ancestor's expression was a bit gloomy. Yuanying cultivators might not be much in Tianjing City, but in the local territories, they were already experts. The other party had personally jumped out at this time, which made him lose some face. The great Zhou dynasty's late-stage Yuanying old ancestor said in a deep voice, "I'll go deal with it and give everyone an explanation." Zhao Huan and Ke Jing looked at each other and nodded slightly. Zhao Huan tilted his head slightly and said to Guozonghuang behind him, "Zonghuang, the few of you will go with Patriarch Yellow Sunday. Take this opportunity to train yourselves." Guozonghuang nodded and replied, "Yes, master." After saying that, he walked out with the Snowstorm Valley disciples behind him. The great Zhou dynasty's old ancestor Yellow Sun and the others did not have any objections, nor did they feel offended. They simply said, "Then let's go." Some of the great Zhou dynasty's cultivators also stayed where they were. Yellow Sun old ancestor took some of them and broke through the void and flew into the distance. Behind him, a crown shone brightly above Guozonghuang's head. Above the crown, two shadows were projected. One of the shadows was dignified and sacred, while the other shadow was evil and domineering. The two shadows fused together and produced a violent energy wave as if it would tear through the void at any time. It was the Yuanying period magic weapon, the golden crown of the ghost and deity. This was the legacy magic weapon of the Snowstorm Valley. After Guozonghuang's status as the third-generation true seat disciple was confirmed, Zhao Huan passed on the golden crown of the ghost and the other golden elixir period magic weapon, the ancient jade armor, which was used for legacy, to Guozonghuang. She only kept the two Yuanying period magic weapons, the Heaven's Wrath Spear and the Exorcism Seal, which were given to her as the second-generation true seat disciple. Although Guozonghuang was an early-stage golden elixir period cultivator, the power of the golden crown of the ghost and deity allowed him to break through the void and catch up with Yellow Sun old ancestor. The group crossed the vast land in the blink of an eye and came to a valley at the border of the Snowstorm Kingdom and the Great Zhou Dynasty. This was one of the main roads between the Great Zhou Dynasty and the Snowstorm Kingdom. Every certain distance, there would be a special formation set up as a node to protect the people who came and went. Not only the people of the secular world, but also the cultivators who cultivated qi and had a lower cultivation base would often stop here to rest. Although the cultivators of the golden elixir period couldn't break through the void and travel, they still had the ability to fly in the air. If they wanted to stop temporarily, most of them would choose these places with formations if there were no special circumstances. At the same time, this place was like a market with people coming and going. Most of the time, they would trade here. However, at this moment, the formation that shrouded the valley had been completely destroyed and the valley was in ruins. The survivors were in a panic and there were corpses in the valley. Guozonghuang glanced at it and frowned. It was a cultivator of the golden elixir period who had been killed. He knew this cultivator of the golden elixir period. He was from the Snowstorm Kingdom and had lived in seclusion for the sake of the Great Zhou Dynasty. Later, he learned that Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu had fallen from power and Snowstorm Kingdom was restored, so he returned to his homeland. He had come to see Zhao Huan before. Although he was much older than Zhao Huan, he was very respectful and grateful. Guozonghuang had also seen him at that time. In addition to this cultivator of the golden elixir period, there were other victims in the valley. After asking the survivors, they learned that the victims were all cultivators of the Snowstorm Kingdom. Yellow Sun old ancestor also wore a solemn expression. He formed a seal with both hands and changed it repeatedly. A withered yellow light shadow appeared and gathered the remaining magic power and spiritual qi in the void. The next moment, as Yellow Sun old ancestor pointed his finger, the withered yellow light flew into the distance and guided the direction. Guozonghuang, Yellow Sun old ancestor, and the others did not say a word and immediately followed the light. Chapter 1286. Guozonghuang, Patriarch Huang Yang, and the others followed the clues and soon caught up with the fleeing cultivator. Although the other party was a Yuanying cultivator, he was far inferior to a veteran late-stage Yuanying cultivator like Patriarch Huang Yang. After being blocked by Patriarch Huang Yang, Guozhong activated the power of the ghost deity Golden Crown and caught up. Patriarch Huang Yang bellowed angrily and a withered yellow light pillar appeared in the sky. As the light flickered, a huge withered yellow poplar tree appeared and fell on the head of the Yuanying cultivator. The withered yellow poplar tree looked strong on the outside but weak on the inside, as if it did not have the slightest power. However, as it fell from the sky, it seemed to seal off the surrounding void, making it impossible for the Yuanying cultivator to escape. The other party could only helplessly stop and form seals with both hands. Beams of green light flew into the air and slashed at the withered yellow old poplar tree. However, these green saber lights could not cut the old poplar tree. Although the poplar tree's falling momentum was a little slower, it was still falling. The Yuanying cultivator waved his sleeve and released a few people who were captured by his magic power. They were all cultivators of the Golden Elixir period. Patriarch Huang Yang snorted and did not bother with them. The great Zhou cultivators under him swarmed forward and surrounded those cultivators of the Golden Elixir period, not letting any of them escape. Guozhong and the other disciples of Xianmen Tianzong stood at the side and did not step forward. They watched Patriarch Huang Yang and the great Zhou cultivators under his command to capture the people. However, at this moment, the flow of the surrounding spiritual qi suddenly changed. Beams of white light soared into the sky and covered the void, instantly enveloping everyone, including Patriarch Huang Yang and Guozhong. The scene in front of everyone suddenly changed, as if they were in a heavy fog. Both Patriarch Huang Yang and Guozhong frowned. Deliberately set up an ambush? Guozhong looked around and saw a vast expanse of whiteness. His fellow disciples seemed to have disappeared. He could not see anyone or hear anything. He was the only person in the world. At this moment, Guozhong's sea of consciousness trembled slightly. He felt as if someone was approaching him from behind. Guozhong shouted. His figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood. The sneak attacker was a cultivator of the Golden Elixir period. His figure was hidden in the clouds, and he wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to assassinate Guozhong. However, his target had disappeared in front of him. This frightened him. Under the cover of the formation, his opponent had not only discovered his whereabouts, but had also made him lose his target. As he felt a chill in his heart, his first reaction was to retreat back into the clouds. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, before he could put it into action, a palm suddenly appeared in front of him and slapped down from above. Under the envelopment of the palm force, the clouds around the Golden Elixir period cultivator completely dissipated, no longer able to protect him. He wanted to dodge, but he only felt as if the sky before him was collapsing. At this moment, the already tall figure grew even larger, like a god descending to the mortal world. With a "pa" sound, the Golden Elixir period cultivator's head was directly smashed by Guozhong's palm. Guozhong's expression did not change. He looked at the surrounding fog and then took out a treasure pearl from his bosom. With a raise of his palm, the treasure pearl flew into the air and flashed with a gentle luster. The luster was like a flowing cloud that spread out in all directions. After coming into contact with the thick fog, the two sides merged and gradually disappeared. This was the Yuanying period magic tool that Guozhong was awarded after he was confirmed as the Snow Wind Valley's first seat disciple. It was called the Void Surveying Cloud Pearl. However, it was not the work of Zhao Huan. Instead, Zhao Huan had asked Li Xingfei of Mortal Forest residents to help her refine it. She had also received some pointers from Wang Lin. It had its own wonders and could see through many illusions. After confirming the function of the formation that trapped them, Guozhong immediately took out this magic tool to help him break the formation. With the Void Surveying Cloud Pearl on his head, Guozhong did not retreat. Instead, he strode forward toward the center of the formation. Under the illumination of the Void Surveying Cloud Pearl, the fog could not get close to Guozhong's body. Because of its influence, even the operation of the formation became slightly sluggish. Guozhong's eyes flashed. He felt a fluctuation of magic power in front of him. As he moved forward, the fog dispersed and revealed ancestor Huang Yang, who was fighting with the enemy. In addition to the Yuanying period cultivator who was originally sitting as a bait, there was another Yuanying period cultivator who was attacking ancestor Huang Yang together with the former. When ancestor Huang Yang saw Guozong Huang, he nodded without saying a word. Without the restraint of the formation, his magic power and magic power were more convenient to use. Even if it was 1 against 2, he could still suppress his opponents in an instant. Streaks of withered yellow light flashed through the air like countless fallen leaves. Immediately, the 2 nascent soul cultivators were covered in cuts and bruises. Guozong Huang pointed a finger at the void-surveying cloud pearl. Suddenly, the pearl shot out a ray of light that looked like a white cloud, which looked like a path. Guozong Huang leaped onto the path and flew all the way. As the fog in front of him dispersed, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Guozong Huang. The other party turned his head with a look of surprise. It was an old man with a sage-like appearance. He had a neat 3-foot white beard, and his magic power fluctuated in the space. His cultivation had reached the early Yuanying period. In his hand was an unstable mass of air. It was a small world formed by his magic power that had just taken shape. There was a young man in the small world with a late foundation establishment cultivation. He was Guozong Huang's junior brother, Qin Pengan, a disciple of Xianmen Tianzong who was also under Zhao Huan. When Guozong Huang saw this, he strode forward without saying a word and rushed toward the white-bearded old man with a majestic gait. The golden crown of ghost and deity appeared on his head again. Powerful magic power was added to his body, and he was wearing a cloak in addition to his purple clothes. The cloak flashed with chaotic brilliance, and streams of star-like light surged out from it, showing the image of the sky flowing and stars shining in all directions. It was another Yuanying period celestial device given to Guozong Huang in addition to the void-surveying cloud pearl. It was called the Celestial Cloak. With the power of the 2 Yuanying period celestial devices, Guozong Huang's vigorous qi and blood burst out. His originally tall body seemed to have grown a lot taller at this moment. He broke through the void with 1 step and came to the front of the white-bearded old man. The celestial cloak worked, making him faster than the white-bearded old man who was trying to break through the void and retreat. Guozong Huang's whole body was like a furnace. His masculine qi and blood were so hot that it was hard to look at them directly. From the moment he took a step forward, his right hand struck out with a palm. When the vigorous palm momentum appeared, he was already in front of the white-bearded old man. This is an early-stage golden elixir cultivator. The white-bearded old man was going to capture Guozong Huang as well, but after seeing the golden crown of ghost and celestial cloak, he changed his mind and was about to shout, "You don't want your fellow disciple's life anymore?" Unexpectedly, before he could say anything, Guozong Huang seemed to have no reserve at all. Disregarding his own defense and safety, he struck out with his left hand in addition to his right palm. Although the left and right palms were 1 in front and 1 behind, under the cover of the palm momentum at this moment, they seemed to be one and continuous. The white-bearded old man only felt that the world was turning upside down at this moment. The sky was collapsing, and the ground was turning upside down. Moreover, this was not the only time when the world was turned upside down. After Guozong Huang's palms moved together, the world seemed to be turned upside down for the 2nd time, and then there would be a 3rd and a 4th time, as if it was endless. The violent force made the operation of the white-bearded old man's spiritual power a little difficult. He suddenly realized that he had to deal with it with all his strength. If he wanted to crush Qin Pengan to death first, it would be easy, but it would not be easy to take Guozong Huang's palm. The opponent was not afraid of the array's confusion. Once he was injured by this palm, and Guozong Huang, who was a martial artist, could get close to him, Guozong Huang's next attack would be like an avalanche. He, an early-stage Yuanying cultivator, might actually die in the hands of this early-stage golden elixir young man in front of him. The white-bearded old man snorted coldly. He held the small world in 1 hand and drew 3 circles in the void with the other hand, dispelling Guozong Huang's palm momentum. Unexpectedly, the celestial cloak on Guozong Huang's body flashed, and his explosive power and speed increased again. His footsteps suddenly changed, and his body swept sideways. Then, the violent palm momentum did not change, but it changed from a direct attack to a diagonal flight, like a big knife slashing out. "Let go of me." As if a clap of thunder sounded on the ground, Guozhong shouted, and the edge of his right hand swept across the white-bearded old man's hand that was holding the small world, breaking it. At this time, Qin Pengon could see the outside world, and he shouted happily, "Brother Guo." Guozhong's violent right hand instantly became gentle, and he rescued Qin Pengon, who had his spiritual power restrained. At the same time, his left hand once again slapped out, facing the white-bearded old man who realized that he had been fooled and became angry out of shame. Blazing qi and blood overflowed, and Guozhong's overbearing palm collided with the white-bearded old man's attack. Both of them trembled and retreated to the sides. Guozhong protected his junior brother, and then continued to stare at the white-bearded old man, and he shouted, "Now, let's have a good fight." At this time, the white-bearded old man had calmed down again, and his gaze towards Guozhong became unprecedentedly serious. Early-stage golden elixir cultivation. Even if you have a yuanying magic tool, this cultivation is still too. After seeing the difference between Guozhong's 2 palms and 1 palm, the white-bearded old man actually felt uncertain for a moment. Guozhong said, "In the past, when our sect first opened, my great martial uncles and great martial uncles had just attained golden elixir, and they only had 1 yuanying magic tool, but they had already fought against an early-stage yuanying cultivator like you. I'm not talented, and it's hard for me to be compared with great martial uncles and great martial uncles, but I don't dare to tarnish the reputation of our sect. Now that my junior brother is not in your hands, I don't need to save him, and you don't need to keep him in custody. Let's both go all out and see who's better." At this time, Qin Pengon shouted, "Brother Guo, they have ulterior motives." "Oh." Guozhong's gaze was awe-inspiring, and when the white-bearded old man met Guozhong's gaze, he felt that the young man's gaze was becoming more and more piercing. Chapter 1287. Guozhong's tall body stood proudly in the void. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at the white-bearded old man opposite him. Qin Pengon, who was next to him, said, "Brother Guo, when this person captured me, he revealed that they are after our sect's fundamental orthodoxy, Tao Te Ching." When Guozhong heard this, anger appeared on his face. His eyes became more and more piercing. He did not attack recklessly, but the fluctuation of his qi, blood, and mana became more violent. The cultivators of Xianmen Tianzong were now recognized as the best in the world, whether it was the speed of cultivation or the strength of those in the same realm. This was not created by Lin Feng alone, but from him all the way down, the first generation of Xianmen Tianzong disciples such as Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi, the second generation disciples such as Tang Jun, Han Yang, and Zhou Yunsong, and the third generation disciples such as Guozhong, who had just begun to show their talents. Generation after generation, the illustrious reputation was created together. The orthodoxy of Taishu Temple, which was once regarded as the top Taoism in the Divine Land, could only bow its head in defeat in front of the Taoism of Xianmen. Since a long time ago, there were people in the Divine Land, whether openly or secretly, hoping to obtain the orthodoxy of Xianmen Tianzong by all kinds of means. However, there was a problem. Non-direct disciples could not learn the Tao Te Ching, and the cultivation of the Tao Te Ching by the direct disciples was also divided into stages. This was not unique to Xianmen Tianzong. Most of the sects in the world were like this. If there were outsiders who wanted to capture the younger disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, those who were below the later stage of the Golden Elixir could at most get the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the contents of the 8 trigrams of the Great Way. Getting the 8 trigrams of the Great Way was of great value, but it would undoubtedly anger Xianmen Tianzong and bring disaster to the robbers. Although the 8 trigrams heavenly Tao scripture was good, one needed to be alive to enjoy it. If you wanted to do something big and rob the disciples of the celestial sect of wonders who had a higher cultivation and inherited the 4 symbols heaven opening book, not to mention that the target's cultivation was higher and it was not easy to capture them. At present, the disciples of the celestial sect of wonders at this level were all Lin Feng's grand disciples. It was very likely that Lin Feng would personally place a seal mark. If they kidnapped someone, they might alarm Lin Feng himself. In the past, when Golden Cicada kidnapped Zhou Yunsong and was chased by Lin Feng all over the wasteland, everyone could not help but weigh the pros and cons. As for Lin Feng's personal disciples who had attained the primordial soul realm, there was no need to mention them. When it came to the Xianmen Tianzong disciples with lower cultivation bases and seniority, most of the time, Lin Feng would not personally leave a mark. Instead, it would be left by Xiao Yan and the others. But even so, it was not something that other people and forces could easily avoid. These talisman marks could not only point out the direction, but also stop the other party from searching their souls. With the current cultivation bases of Xiao Yan and the others, it was not difficult for the other party to destroy and kill them. But to break through the barrier of the talisman marks and search their souls, one needed to be at least an expert in the Dharma ending realm or someone with the same level of power. If it was a mark personally left by Lin Feng, even an expert in the Dharma ending realm would not be able to break through and search their souls by force. And there were basically only a few people with such strength in the divine land. At the same time, each of them had a large family and business. After the incident, Xianmen Tianzong would come knocking on their doors immediately. Without a complete Taoist technique inheritance, even if they practiced it, they were destined to be unable to surpass the top experts in Xianmen Tianzong. They still had to continue to face the huge pressure of Xianmen Tianzong. Currently, there were only a few people, including Lin Feng himself, who had obtained a complete Taoist technique inheritance. Even if they paid a great price and succeeded in obtaining it, if they could not make their strength obviously surpass that of Xianmen Tianzong in a short period of time, the result would still be destruction under the wrath of Xianmen Tianzong. Xianmen Tianzong had always paid attention to protecting their disciples and inheritances. Previously, there were a few people who took risks out of desperation, but they all paid a heavy price and ended up in failure. Guozong Huang stared at the white-bearded old man and shouted in a deep voice, "Are you under the orders of Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo?" The other party was not from the Taoist orthodoxy of the king of the underworld, nor was it a Buddhist orthodoxy. Guozong Huang could immediately be sure that these attackers were under the orders of Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo. The ruler and the minister were driven out of the divine land by Xianmen Tianzong and fled into the Ying Sea. Under the joint effect of the huge hatred and the huge pressure, they no longer had any scruples and became unscrupulous. The white-bearded old man's expression was gloomy. The fog behind him gradually dispersed, and a few Yuanying cultivators appeared. These Yuanying cultivators were all strong, and their leader was a late-stage Yuanying patriarch. He stared at Guozong Huang with admiration, but more than that, greed. When the white-bearded old man saw them, he hurriedly bowed. This kid has many extremely powerful Yuanying artifacts with him. I can't do anything to him for now. The late-stage Yuanying patriarch waved his hand. It's fine. I'll do it myself. Time is tight, and I can't delay it. With a slight thought, Guozong Huang found that Patriarch Huang Yang was also entangled by another late-stage Yuanying cultivator, and someone was trying to collect his void-surveying drifting cloud pearl. He looked at the late-stage Yuanying patriarch without fear. Inheritance of the Tianmen orthodoxy. Are you from the Eastern Heavenly Gate? Good eyesight, but I don't have time to waste with a junior like you. The Eastern Heavenly Gate cultivator didn't waste any more words. He directly stretched out his hand, and streams of clear air gathered and fell on Guozong Huang and Patriarch Huang Yang. However, at this moment, a powerful force surged from outside the fog formation, forcibly tearing the thick fog apart. Zhao Huan held the Heaven Wrath spear and split the void open. He came in front of everyone, and beside him was a kind-looking, smiling old man. It was Dao Master Chang'e of the Great Qin dynasty. The Eastern Heavenly Gate cultivator sighed and withdrew his attack on Guozong Huang and Patriarch Huang Yang. He directly revealed his heaven and earth avatar, and then Zhao Huan's spear was already in front of him. Just one blow was enough to destroy his heaven and earth avatar. However, after Zhao Huan's attack, she stopped. Dao Master Chang'e frowned and looked down at the ground beneath his feet. The fog formation that everyone was in shattered, but immediately after that, an even more powerful energy wave emerged. Rays of green light interweaved in the sky, and together, they laid out an even more powerful formation. After Zhao Huan and Dao Master Chang'e arrived, they faintly felt something. At this moment, the formation was completely activated. Both of them frowned slightly. This formation was somewhat similar to the blue sky formation that was passed down in the Heavenly Gate, but there were some omissions. It looked more like an improved formation, which was naturally the work of the Eastern Heavenly Gate. Zhao Huan and Dao Master Chang'e looked at each other. This was a double ambush. Now it seemed that the opponent's target was not Guozong Huang and ancestor Huang Yang, but the two of them. In this case, a formation alone was obviously not enough. At this moment, the void in the distance suddenly split open and a figure appeared. It was a woman in her 20s. She was beautiful and graceful. Although it was the first time that Zhao Huan, Guozong Huang, and the others saw this woman, they naturally recognized her as the current sect master of the Eastern Heavenly Gate, Shao Qingcheng. Her father, Shao Dongtian, founded the Eastern Heavenly Gate and reached the Dao integration realm. However, he was captured by Lin Feng in Kunlun Mountain and put on the Xiantian God Sealing flag. The Xiantian Seal, the Mahayana-level magic treasure of the Eastern Heavenly Gate, also fell into the hands of Xianmen Tianzong. Even the foundation of the Eastern Heavenly Gate overseas was wiped out by Lin Feng. Later, the great Zhou dynasty redeemed it with great difficulty, but Shao Dongtian and Dao Master Dongming, who had set foot on Yujing Mountain, were still not released. Because Shao Qingcheng had always stayed in Tianjing City, she was able to avoid the disaster. However, to her and the Eastern Heaven Gate, it was already a disaster. The Eastern Heaven Gate only existed in name, completely becoming a subordinate force of the great Zhou dynasty. Previously, when Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu escaped, Shao Qingcheng, who had no other choice, could only follow them. However, she did not escape into the Ying Sea immediately. Instead, she hid in the Divine Land and suddenly attacked at this moment. Although there were no other Xianmen Tianzong cultivators in the Snowgale country and the great Zhou dynasty, Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, Yu Hongyan, and Li Yuanfang had all chased into the Ying Sea, but for Shao Qingcheng, time was extremely limited. She needed to end the battle quickly, or else there would be a disaster at any time. What Zhao Huan and Dao Master Chang Lu were concerned about was that Shao Qingcheng had actually successfully refined her spirit to return to the void. Zhao Huan looked at Shao Qingcheng and said calmly, "Second Martial Uncle once said that you have cultivated the divine way passed down by the ancient Heavenly Gate. If you completely cultivate it, there is a high chance that you will directly reach the void return stage. So, Madame Shao of the House of Xuanji no longer exists." Shao Qingcheng glanced at Zhao Huan, her gaze slightly narrowing. Not long ago, she did not even care about Zhu Yi, only feeling that he was under Lin Feng's protection. Only when she suffered a loss in the Battle of the Ying Sea did she know how powerful Zhu Yi was. But at this moment, looking at Zhu Yi's junior speaking in a neither servile nor overbearing manner in front of her, Shao Qingcheng still had mixed feelings in her heart. Previously, the Eastern Heavenly Gate and the Eastern Sea had concealed their strength and bided their time, silently developing, silently waiting for the moment when they would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, but now, it was all over. Even if Shao Qingcheng successfully reached the void return stage, the Eastern Heavenly Gate was already yesterday's flower. It was unknown how long it would take for them to grow stronger again. Even Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu, who were attached to them, had already fallen and had no choice but to flee to the Ying Sea. Zhu Hongwu, who was once extremely powerful, even more powerful than his father, Shao Dongtian, had also suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Zhu Yi. The world had changed, and the situation had taken a turn for the worse. The change in the blink of an eye made Shao Qingcheng, who had always been proud, feel a sense of dejection and despair. However, she quickly calmed her mind and looked at Zhao Huan, saying indifferently, "You're far inferior to Zhou Yunsong. I hope that the master of the Celestial Gate didn't leave a mark on you. If it's just people like Zhu Yi, His Majesty Emperor Zhou can still resolve it with the Grand Imperial Palace." From the beginning, Liang Pan's target had been Zhao Huan or Ke Jing. Apart from the 8 trigrams Great Tao scripture, he had also inherited the 4 symbols heaven opening scripture. He was inconspicuous among the second-generation successor disciples of the Celestial Gate, so it was very likely that Lin Feng wouldn't pay special attention to him. Now that the situation was so bad that it couldn't get any worse, Liang Pan naturally no longer had any scruples. Chapter 1288. Xiao Qingqing's gaze swept over Zhao Huan and Dao Master Chang'e. Without saying anything, she stretched out her palm toward the sky and the sky broke. One of the 7 luminaries' true techniques of the heavens, the celestial star mysterious cold ice fiend was activated. The celestial water star's radiance fell and turned into layers of ice crystals, directly freezing the surrounding void and enveloping Zhao Huan and the others. She was pressed for time. After capturing Zhao Huan, she would first try to search her soul to see if the person who left the soul mark on Zhao Huan was someone from Yu Hongyan's generation or Lin Feng's. If it was the former, she would immediately use the array she had prepared to escape quickly and rush to Yingxi to meet up with Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo. If it was the latter, there was no hope at all. She would just capture Guozong Huang and the others. Even if she couldn't get the 4 symbols heaven opening book, she would at least get the 8 diagrams Great Way of the Heavens. In any case, after getting the Dharma, the people were not important anymore. She would either kill or throw them away. She would deal with them as soon as possible to avoid being tracked. Of the 2 opponents in front of her, although Zhao Huan was a direct disciple of the Celestial Sect, her cultivation realm was still low. As for Dao Master Chang'e, Xiao Qingqing was confident that she could defeat him when they were both at the primordial spirit incarnation realm. Now that she had successfully refined her spirit to return to the void, there was no need to say more. But at this moment, Xiao Qingqing's divine sense suddenly shook slightly, and she looked straight ahead. In that direction, the void cracked open and a figure walked out. He walked into the sky full of ice and snow formed by Xiao Qingqing's celestial star mysterious cold ice fiend as if nothing had happened. Seeing this figure, Xiao Qingqing's heart suddenly sank to the bottom. The figure was tall and straight, and his flesh and blood fluctuated with a powerful power that made people's hearts palpitate. He was a powerful martial artist at the peak of the Void Return realm, only half a step away from the Tao Integration realm. And this martial artist's facial features were exactly the same as Zhu Yi's. It was his Hao Yang doppelganger. Xiao Qingqing took a deep breath. This doppelganger of yours didn't enter Yingxi with your main body. Zhu Yi's Hao Yang clone said faintly, before I went to Yinghai, I deduced with the Book of Changes and obtained the divination of the wind and fire families. The female righteousness is inside, and she sticks to her original intention. Among the many concubines of Liang Pan, including the Empress, there are no strong cultivators. Among Zhu Hongwu's wives and concubines, only you have reached the primordial soul realm. Sticking to the same principle and not changing one's original intentions is sometimes praiseworthy, but sometimes it's just walking down a dark path. Zhu Yi looked at Xiao Qingqing. When I saw this divination, I knew that you were going to cause trouble. You guys have been coveting my Taoist techniques for a long time. If the heavens want to destroy them, they will first make them go crazy. I think Liang Pan has no scruples now and wants to fulfill his long-cherished wish. Moreover, I severed the blood relationship between my previous life and Zhu Honggu and returned the flesh and blood to him. If his martial arts were not crippled, it would not be difficult. But now, even with Liang Pan's help, it would be difficult for him to refine the flesh and blood. After all, the human body is intricate, like a small universe of creation. If he wants to master it, he needs to be able to control it carefully. His martial arts have been crippled. If he wants to make a comeback, he will first have to refine the flesh and blood of my previous life. But he can't refine my flesh and blood now. To resolve this conflict, the best way is to obtain my Taoist techniques manual, Xianmen Tianzong. After all, my previous life's body cultivated the orthodox Taoist techniques of the Taoist techniques. Zhu Yi's tone was calm and gentle, but Xiao Qingqing's heart was getting colder and colder. If you want to cause trouble, simply destroying something is not very meaningful. There are many places that you can't offend. Since that is the case, it is not hard to guess what you want to do by staying in the Divine Land. Compared to other places, everything here in Snowgale Country is still a mess. It is suitable for you guys to act. The most dangerous place is the safest, and it can also produce an unexpected effect. It is better than searching other places to capture the true disciples of my Taoist techniques. The experts here are limited, and it will take time for the experts from other places to come to help. You have successfully refined your spirit to return to the void, so there is room for you to display your skills. As long as your hands and feet are nimble, and you can arrange an escape route properly, it is not impossible for you to succeed. Zhu Yi stepped on the void, his hands behind his back, and walked towards Xiao Qingqing step by step. With every step he took, his aura rose by a notch, enveloping the entire void. Above his head, the true meaning of martial arts continued to manifest and condense, and the fist intent gradually condensed into a solid, shocking heaven and earth. The condensed world of light and shadow began to compress continuously, and finally turned into a ball of light, like the brightest star in the sky. This freak, a cultivator of the void return realm, has actually refined a doppelganger of the Tao integration realm. Seeing this scene, Xiao Qingqing's face suddenly turned pale. The doppelganger of Hao Yang of Zhu Yi in front of her was condensing his own Tao fruit, reaching the void return and Tao integration realm. Many experts could not reach the Tao integration realm in their lifetime, but at this moment, for the doppelganger of Hao Yang of Zhu Yi, it seemed to be a piece of cake. Not only Xiao Qingqing, but even Tao Master Chang Lu, Ancestor Huang Yang, and the others were shocked from the bottom of their hearts. The ball of light gradually fell on the head of the doppelganger of Hao Yang of Zhu Yi, merging with his physical body. The aura of the doppelganger changed, making people's hearts palpitate even more, and it became even more terrifying. Zhu Yi did not stop walking. As he walked, he said, "You are the person who killed my mother. My thoughts are incomparably clear when I capture you." This doppelganger was originally at the peak of the void return realm, so what's so strange about it reaching the Tao integration realm now? Xiao Qingqing's face was livid. At this moment, Zhu Yi had not even made a move, but his words were extremely certain that she could not win, and she could not escape. That strong confidence even directly fed back to the doppelganger of Hao Yang, forming a mysterious state, directly breaking through the final bottleneck. It seemed that for Zhu Yi, as long as she dared to appear in front of him, there would be no problem, and he would definitely be able to capture her. The people you arranged in Mist Mountain won't be able to succeed either. Zhu Yi said, "Our sect's guest elder, Tao Lord Lu Bo, is there." Hearing this, Xiao Qingqing immediately knew that her goal of this trip was destined to be impossible. Now, she needed to be concerned about how to escape from Zhu Yi. Although she had reached the void return realm and condensed a void return realm dharma body, and her cultivation was extremely high, she did not have any thoughts of fighting at this moment. Although it was only a doppelganger of Zhu Yi in front of her, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. "Go!" Xiao Qingqing immediately shouted in a low voice. Her hands changed hand seals, and the huge spell formation improved from the blue sky all heavens array was activated with a loud bang. Streaks of green light crisscrossed between heaven and earth, and the sky and earth seemed to be about to be overturned. Time and space were instantly distorted, and Xiao Qingqing's figure also gradually disappeared in the distorted time and space. Zhu Yi's eyes moved, and he said slowly, "I'm waiting for you here. On one hand, I want to capture you to avenge my mother, and on the other hand, I want to further confirm Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu's location through you, so that even if they are in the Ying Ocean, they will have no way to escape." His words were slow, but his movements weren't slow at all. His figure flickered, leaving a trail of footprints in the air. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before Xiao Qingqing and threw out 3 consecutive punches. The 3 punches combined into one, turning into a domineering and majestic fist intent that transcended the Nirvana realm. It immediately froze the distorted time and space, causing Xiao Qingqing to be stuck in the spatial gap. As Zhu Yi's punches blasted out completely, Xiao Qingqing, who was trying to escape, was directly shaken out of the spatial gap. Xiao Qingqing was shocked. She didn't expect that even with the help of the formation, she still wouldn't be able to escape from Zhu Yi. She knew very well what the consequences would be if she fell into Zhu Yi's hands. She didn't care about anything else and manifested her void return Dharma form, turning into a 3-meter-tall woman in a palace dress. She raised a long bridge in her hand, and starlight shone on the bridge, and a wheel of light could vaguely be seen rotating in the center of the bridge. Xiao Qingqing activated her Dao technique to the extreme, and the sky above her cracked open. The celestial water star, fire star, and wood star flashed together. Under the guidance of Xiao Qingqing's divine power, the power of the stars was added to her body. Her void return Dharma form flashed continuously, turning into small worlds that revolved around her as if the myriad worlds were revolving at the same time. The wheel of light in the center of the long bridge became clearer and clearer. When Zhu Yi saw this, he remained expressionless. His emotions did not fluctuate at all as he said, "Your heavenly gate's orthodoxy is too incomplete." As he stood guard, he slammed his palm down. At the center of his palm, there was also a wheel of light revolving rapidly, as if it was trying to guide the myriad worlds to revolve as well, generating boundless power. This wheel of light was clearer, more complete, and more powerful than Xiao Qingqing's heavenly treasure wheel. Under the pressure of the heavenly treasure wheel's intent realm from Zhu Yi's palm, Xiao Qingqing's heavenly treasure wheel instantly became sluggish, as if it was about to stop revolving and even crumble. Xiao Qingqing's expression instantly changed. How could she not see that this palm strike from Zhu Yi's Haoyang clone was actually an improved version of Xiao Dongtian's ultimate technique, the Hand of the Heavens, which was transformed into a martial Dao divine power before charging into the heavenly treasure wheel's intent realm. Zhu Yi's Hand of the Heavens pressed down, directly locking down the surrounding void. This made Xiao Qingqing feel as if she was being enveloped by the heavens, and no matter where she tried to hide, she wouldn't be able to escape. The speed of this palm strike was very slow, and it didn't seem ferocious or violent. It seemed completely different from ordinary martial arts, but it was extremely difficult to defend against. Xiao Qingqing unleashed the roving Jade Heaven's Realm evasion technique, but she was still unable to escape. She was pressed down by Zhu Yi's palm, and she could only helplessly unleash the Heavenly Gate's protective mystic technique, the Heavenly Great World Curse, and the protective mystic technique, the Longevity Chaotic Heavens Protection Curse, recorded in the Grand Sovereign Scripture. She alternated the two techniques to protect herself and forcibly resist the power of Zhu Yi's palm strike. However, it was all in vain. Xiao Qingqing could only watch as the countless incantations formed from her magic power crumbled and shattered. This terrifying feeling was like Mount Tai crushing down on an egg, unstoppable.